podcast is brought to you by Guiding Growing Minds, a social enterprise that aims to give all children the best opportunity to reach their potential and succeed in living rich and meaningful lives.
Episode 102 in the bag, Dr. Billy Garvey. Fantastic. More questions than I think ever. It just keeps going week to week.
Yeah, really tough because I got it down to 50 we had to do, but we there was a lot that should have been there but we couldn't do for time. But really a bit of an emotional roller coaster. Some really amazing practical tips from the community. That was a real highlight for me. Some beautiful vulnerability shared, and then just for a change, I choked through the last reflection.
You do, and then you do have a clue at the end for the next film. It is there. It's hard to see, but it's there.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Guys, enjoy the episode. We'll be back for 103, the next one coming up, but enjoy.
Hi, I'm Billy, a developmental paediatrician.
And I'm Nick, a developing parent.
We're going to use scenes from iconic movies to talk about how we best support our kids.
This is pop culture parenting.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is it, Daddy? And what does it do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.
Good morning, Dr. Billy Garvey. How are you?
Good, really good, thanks mate. It's, as always, the 102nd time to delight to see you.
Is it the only time it's a delight to see me is when we podcast?
It's always a delight to see you, mate.
Good
No, I
cover
promise,
up.
That's
Good,
one thing I 100% believe in.
Dig up.
Put me on the lie detector test. It is always delightful.
We had the kids were out here this morning, weren't they? We got a little play before we hit record.
Yes, yeah, and on topic, we might bring up that moment.
I built some connection.
Yes.
Because this is part 2 of Connection, Billy. We previously talked about Edward Scissorhands. So if you haven't listened to the first episode, always good to go back and give it a spin to give you a bit of context about what we're going to be covering in this week's episode. But if you don't, doesn't matter, because we are taking questions from the general public on all things Connection this week, Billy.
Yes, lots of questions. I think I texted you about 10 p.m. last night. It was like, I've got it down to 50 longs and I can't cut any more. You're not going to do 50 longs, don't worry. No. I've cut some phenomenal feedback. Everything gets read. Pretty emotional roller coaster for me because it had a break from it, but just I read everything. And yeah, I'll just find myself, tearing up and just getting a bit emotional quite frequently on the stuff people send in. So thank you all for that.
You would have noticed I didn't respond to any of your text messages last night, which is a little bit unlike me.
What were you
doing?
Saw them.
Sleeping hard.
Wow.
I was sleeping for Australia last night, people. Let me tell you, it was a lot of magnesium and a little bit of melatonin because I needed to sleep properly last night. My previous night was terrible.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we did a recording for, what was it, for the Acme or the something that was coming up. We sat here on the weekend and when I posted it, one of our friends that knows us both is like, have they got filters on their face? They look 10 years younger.
It was beautiful natural light. We need to shoot staring out the window, except I'd get sunburnt at 10 past 8 in the morning, which would be terrible. Can I tell you one other thing? Just quick, we're going to get cracking here. Someone else said to me, so Billy whacked up the video of us going, pre-sale tickets on Patreon for the ACMI show. And someone screenshot something and sent it to someone else that said, "Oh, if they got a Patron sponsorship, how good! This is something I can get around." Patron tequila, and they're like, the friend responded, "No, it's Patreon."
Well, we were just practicing how to pronounce a few words.
I know.
So we can't throw too many stones.
No, God, no. Yeah, Billy, there's 3 words coming up that Billy's like, "Yeah, you're going to have to say that." I'm like, "I don't even know what it means, mate." And then we had Google out with the microphone going, this is how you say it.
Mate, you had a very good education, so what's your excuse?
Billy, let's get into the polls, shall we?
So very quickly, this will come out on a Monday. It looks like that Thursday we're going to do the live Q&A for paid Patreon members. So really excited to see people there. It'll be on anxiety and sensitive kids. So beautiful chat. Nick won't be there, unfortunately, as a presenter.
No.
But really looking forward to that. And we'll keep doing them if that works.
Okay, brilliant.
But cool. Let's roll the polls.
Let's go with the polls. So 3 poll questions via Instagram. Billy, we asked people, do you find it hard to connect with your kids? 75% of people said yes.
What did you say?
No, I think I said no, to be honest. I mean, well, yeah, at times I do.
Yeah, it's hard. There's a fairly tight character.
Yeah, I kind of, I don't know how to answer that. No. Because you'd pump me up. You said I connect well with the kids. So I was carrying that with me all week in the last episode. You were like, oh, you do a good job connection. I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think you really do, mate. And I said, I actually thought about it and I was like, oh, it would be 100% no in the first year of both the kids' lives. I really struggled. And we'll talk about babies. But I reckon now I'm in tune with them, but I find it really hard when I'm stressed, and that'll come up.
Yeah.
There was about 200 questions about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, you were really nice to me last week, so I carried that.
Mate, I hope I'm always really nice to you.
Yeah. Hey, Billy, we asked people, did you get enough connection growing up? 66% of people said no. I got enough.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
I think, yep. Oh, maybe I was in a great mood when these questions came out. I think,
a couple of years under your belt.
I was thinking about, I don't know, I think I got enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's enough?
Well, yeah, really good question. Enough is that you feel safe and secure with people in your lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You?
That was a no for me, like the majority. So, yeah.
Not the majority, that's true.
The beautiful thing, though, is the third one. And someone commented how cool that so many people have changed this.
Do you have healthy adult connections? 74% said yes.
You're a hard yes to that, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep. Lucky. Look at you. I got partner.
Yeah, I don't think I'd say yes if I didn't have you, to be honest. Because I just really... I've just got massive walls up. And so we'll talk about some of that and how it can limit connection.
But I got great, I thought about my neighbours. I got some really good neighbours and stuff in the street, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the thing I'm trying to do is in a healthy and safe way, enrich some of the current relationships I have and then try and build trusting new ones. But we had a lot of feedback about people that really struggle with that and get burnt when they overshare and all that stuff and get too deep too quickly. And that's what I do. And you kind of have to go through that crucible a bit sometimes if you're a sensitive person, and it can be really hard. And we'll talk about sensitive kids in the setting of connection as well.
Okay, ace. Hey, Billy, we're going to rip into some shorts. I'm going to keep you the shorts as well. Yeah. They're going to be short, aren't they?
Yeah, promise. Because, I've been tight with the longs, but maybe, we'll see. The shorts, some amazing stuff came through.
13 shorts.
We'll go quick.
Okay, cool. So you're telling me it's not how I react in the moment of the blow up, but every moment before?
So the times that you've consoled me when I've been struggling that were beautiful and worked and helped me, do you think it was what you did in the moment, or do you think it was the fact that you know me, you're sensitive to what my needs are, you're responsive to how I handle things?
Okay. Yeah,
I think if you didn't do all the time with me in the
lead
calm,
up,
you'd be able to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's hard to do with a stranger.
Yeah. If Evie struggles, you'd be able to soothe her.
Yep.
You couldn't do it for Charlie yet, could you?
No, not with Charlie. I don't have a strong connection with Charlie.
Yeah, and are you going to earn that with Charlie crying, or are you going to earn that?
Yeah, it's going to be hard in that moment. Yeah, good point. Yep.
You earn it in joy, don't you? You earn it in play.
Yeah, that's why totally.
Evie, you're a primary attachment figure for Evie because of all the play, not because you've consoled her. Yep. You're able to console her because of all the effort you've put in. Yeah,
and we've seen me scare Charlie 3 times this week to the point where he's cried twice because I haven't adjusted my levels of
but it's
my
the
connection.
Repair, mate. He still lights up when he sees you.
Yeah.
Evie's jumps into your arms, and he'll jump into your arms soon too because of all the joy that you give him.
Okay, cool. Yep. I've got to work on that, don't I? It's embarrassing.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Any nuggets on connection and neuroplasticity? What's neuroplasticity mean?
So, neuroplasticity is really about how our brain growth changes, and it's really amazing. Bruce Perry, who I spent some time with last year, has this famous picture of a 3-year-old brain, and people used to think neglect, which is the most severe form of lack of connection, wasn't as bad as abuse, because abuse you're actually doing something, you're hurting a kid, but neglect you're just ignoring them and either emotionally or physically not giving them what they need. And what he showed is that the brain growth at 3 years is about half the size of a normal brain growth. So even just looking at the size of the brain, it's less, because the way that our brains grow is through enrichment in an environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like think about it simply. Our visual cortex, is blurred when we're born. We can't really see that well.
Okay.
And then we create this amazing ability to see because we get so much opportunity to look at things with detail.
Okay.
And you have to feel things richly for the emotional part of your brain to grow.
Okay.
You have to be safe and secure.
Okay.
And so, yeah. And we're going to talk about, just in case that person meant neurodiversity, we're going to talk about that a lot as well.
Okay, cool. So, sorry, I'm not being rude. Any nuggets on the connection?
Oh, yeah. So just really rich interactions.
What's the rich interaction?
Joy is what you did this morning
Okay,
with Evie.
joy.
So you spent 2 minutes max with Evie this morning?
Yeah.
But you picked her up, you played with her, you did something silly, she laughed, she giggled.
Okay.
She felt like she was the most important person in the world for those 2 minutes.
Okay.
And her brain growth will have benefited from that 2 minutes that you invested in her.
Okay. All right, got it.
That'll be like one of the 5
Great.
things that happens for her today that enriches her brain growth.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, no, I do now. That's great.
If you didn't
Feel
know
good
that, because
now.
we were rushing a bit, and I saw her coming, and I was like, "Oh man, she's going to want to see you once she jags in the room." And that was why I felt a bit bad, because we were getting ready to record. But I was like, "Nah, the 2 minutes it costs us will literally help her brain grow. It'll help her have secure self-esteem. It'll help her emotionally regulate because of the joy that you experience with her."
Okay, that's good. That's a
You
good
don't need to
nugget.
spend 2 hours with her to do that either.
No, yeah, you say that. The quality, not the quantity.
Yeah.
Something. You say it better. Hey, Billy, can you unpack phone use and the impact on connection?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a bit lately, actually, because I've been, I had a little bit of a detox when we were away, and it was really healthy for me, and I'm kind of back into it now, just checking my phone all the time. And there's been, because it challenges our connection when we're on the phone and we're with someone, we're not really 100% present if you're also looking at a screen, obviously. The important thing to think about is, though, it's not the phone, it's what's going on for you internally. And for example, being full disclosure, often I would put the kids to bed and settle them, and I'd be sometimes so busy that I'd have the phone behind them so that they couldn't see the phone, but I could see the phone, and I'd be going through emails, trying to catch up on to-do list while the kid's falling asleep on me.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I got to stop doing that. That's bad. I should be 100% present with them. Yeah. So I'd make a rule to leave my phone out of the room.
Oh, God.
But you know what I'd do?
What?
I'd still be focusing on all that stuff and not 100% with them. So I'd have to catch myself and be in the moment with this kid that's in your arms that you haven't had any time with today. Don't think about all the stuff you got to do. But that's
It's
work
so
I have to
hard.
do. But it's easy to blame the phone, but it's actually what's going on internally for us, and addressing that and saying, yeah, I'm actually just stressed about holding too much. I've got to deal with that, and then I'll have the capacity to be 100% present with this person. I go to my phone. The more I go to my phone is just a perfect barometer of how stressed I am. I can look at it and go, cool, let's cut down on the alcohol, let's improve the sleep, all that stuff. The hardest thing for me to regulate is how frequently I go to my phone when I'm stressed.
Yeah.
And it makes me less productive, but it's a tap out for me emotionally, because I go, I'm getting stressed, distraction.
Totally.
Bang, bang, bang. So what's going on is the stresses I need to address, not the actual phone.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Good. I like that. Hey, Billy, best way for dads to connect with newborn babies?
Yeah, it's actually exactly what you did with Evie. Just in moments of calm, just enjoy them. And it's the best way to learn how to be sensitive and responsive to a kid is a little baby, because you can't go off their language. You have to go purely off their body language. And we've talked a lot about this, but when they hold gaze, when they're happy, when they're relaxed, they're enjoying something, and keep doing it. Mirror them, all the stuff we've talked about, like making sounds, copy their movements. They'll really enjoy that beautiful mirroring. It starts your mirror neurons kicking off, which is another big part of brain growth. But also be sensitive to them in a way that if they look like they're avoiding gaze, or they're tensing up, or they're getting upset, change what you're doing and see what happens. Mm-mm. So it's the beginning of the dance that we have of building our emotional connection with someone. And it's, I think, a lot of, non-birthing parents. That's going to come up again. I think a lot
What's
of
non-birthing?
It's a person who's a parent or a caregiver that didn't give birth to the child.
Gotcha. Yep.
It'll make sense at the end.
Yep.
I think a lot of those people will be vulnerable, like I was, to not feeling that connection.
Totally, yeah.
And just getting down on that baby's level and just enjoying them. That's
also,
how you build connection.
Understanding that it seems pretty common.
Really common. I try and put that out in the world a lot.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
common.
not just postnatal depression. That's 30% of women.
The non-birthing parent, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Got to be common. I got one for this. I always just used to give them the pinky finger because I love that. What's the grip called?
Oh, yeah, the palmar grasp.
Palmar grasp. I love that automatic grasp.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of pull on it. It's like a fish hook.
Yeah.
Like,
You're amazing, mate, because you love little babies. So.
Yeah. I love for half an hour and then handing them back.
Yeah.
I can't. Oh, imagine having another one now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Oh, cute. Hey, Billy, how to explain to a kid that you need a break without upsetting them?
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it? What have you got for this?
I do it a lot, actually. I don't know. I don't know. No. Like, I don't think I do it well, but I ask for it a lot.
Mm.
I try to think about letting them know that I'm struggling.
Beautiful.
But it's sort of this bit, like my kid's 4, like how the hell is she going to understand that? So I don't think I do it well. Also have a bit of a boundary around the eating of dinner. So the kids always eat first. And so we have this other one where I'm like, when mum and dad are eating, I hate it when they crowd me. When they crowd you, get around behind you and you're trying to eat and I feel unsafe.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They're like behind
it's like
you.
trying to eat a meal when they want to sit in your lap. And
Yeah, you're
I
like,
love
I
that you want to sit in my lap, but God, I'd love to just eat this meal.
Just let me eat. Just give me the 6 minutes.
Constantly happened to us last night. Annalise and I don't see each other much when we're having dinner. And every time we tried to have a conversation, Evie kept like intentionally interrupting with some important question. Like she just didn't want us to talk. And Annalise is like, oh, it's fine. I guess we'll have a chat when we're dead.
So going back to this, going to explain to a kid you need a break without seeing them, I would just say, well, that one where I have dinner, that's our break. Like, you got to give us 10 minutes, like 10 minutes just while we eat. So I just always say it. So I've been reiterating that. And the other one is just like if I'm at the park and I'm just done pushing on the swings, I'll try and flag that I'm going to need a break in a minute or two and be like, Dad's taking a break in 5, all right? So how many more pushes is it 10? Let's do the countdown. You count with me. Yeah. And then do it. And then I'm like, oh, just give us 5 on the, just let me go to the bubbler.
Because you're creating predictability in both of them. The dinner one is a routine that they're less likely to take personal. And then the other one, you're signposting and saying this is coming up. Yeah. But it's an important thing to do, mate. The trajectory is normally around 4 when kids will start to really understand the words around emotions and being able to put labels on them. So you're actually doing it at the right time about saying this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm going to need. But making sure you also watch the kid and see how they're going and make sure that they still feel that love and connection. Yeah. And if they don't, it's okay as well. Yeah. These are not momentary things that will hurt them down the line if you're not doing it all the time. Yeah. And I'd just say that to this person, like, I ask for it a lot because I genuinely need it. Like, I get stressed. Yeah, totally. I need a minute. It's beautiful though, mate. I don't know how some people don't. Well, you're tapping into what your feelings are. Yeah. Which is really important. And that you're role modelling that as well for the kids about, Henrietta just seems to be able to sit there forever and do it, and I can't. Anyway. Yeah. All right, Billy. Hey, I really want to know what movie Billy was in. So there's a funny story about this, which is why I left it in, where, it was in this movie, and the guys who made the movie were you an extra? Did you have a line? What happened? So I had a role. I didn't have a line, but this woman was at a bar, and she looks over and goes, oh, that guy's all right. Who's he? Or something like that. So... understandably, my mates who made the movie had a skewed view of me because I went over at the Chinese cinema in LA premiere, like red carpet stuff. I was like, this is amazing. Showed my mates at the Australian premiere. We packed out a cinema in Australia when it premiered in Australia. I came into the scene, that line was delivered, and they burst out into laughter. Your mates. I was like, that might be the end of my career there. So it was very funny. But the what's it called? It's called Crawl. And the other... Yeah, there's horror? A funny story with that. Yeah, horror. Oh. But it's funny. Two very quick other funny things about it. I was a bit down in the dumps yesterday, I think, because there was some crummy book reviews that I saw. I just checked them. I hadn't checked them since for ages and ages. So I was like, have a look. And there was consecutive bad ones, and I was like, this sucks. And then for some reason I checked the movie, and the movie got slammed. The movie's like, it's terrible, it's awful, all this stuff. But there's one reviewer comment where I'm like, that's my name. And so I read it because I'm William Garvey in that, and it's like, at least there was one good acting performance by William Garvey. I'm like, bang. And then I read the second sentence and he'd mixed up which person was playing. And I was like, just this slight temporary reprieve of negative reviews, and then it was a false one. But the final funniest story about it, because people might find this funny, is that I met Annalise at Golden Plains, a music festival, and then had my first date with her. And I was like, we're texting and stuff, and I'm like, how accurate is my memory of this music festival and this person I've met? Pull up to the restaurant and I'm like, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. And she's waiting for me. And I sit down and I'm like, God, she's amazing. And I was like, play every ace you've got. And so I'm like, I've been in a movie.
Been to Hollywood.
It's LA. And Annalise is very humble and has never told any of her friends this. Just to shut me up, I think, mentioned that she was a childhood TV star and movie star.
What?
So, yeah, do you know this?
No.
Yeah. She was the Sleepover Club. She was the mean one on it. So if you look back, you can see like 10-year-olds or whatever, how old she was for years. I know. And I was like, God, but she told no one, none of her friends. She's so humble. And I'm like, I'd be wearing that as a T-shirt.
I wanted to be an actor. We are so slow. We are so slow on these fast questions. Sorry. I'm going to cut us off. God, I wanted to be an actor. So bad.
You'd be amazing at it. Live show is going to happen again interstate. You'll get to see Nick.
Yeah. What to do when they push you away? When you're going for connection.
What do you do?
Give them space, but not too far.
Yeah.
Is that it?
How do you know the right space?
So they just start to not be as stressed. Like they're not as yelling and screaming, so I just move away.
Yeah.
To be honest, I get tired and I'm lazy and I often just go, I'll give you a minute. So then I get a minute, which is bad. So I just admitted that. Well, they're stressed. You go, you need a minute? And they could be like, no, stay. I'd be like, no, sorry. I mean, they don't. If they do, I would. Totally, but, you're like...
I know what you like.
But then I have you in my head going, no, don't abandon them, hang around. But then you're like, is it inside the room or outside the room? Like, they're pretty wild.
But those are two completely different things. Withdrawing love from a kid who's struggling...
right.
Because maybe you're trying to punish them, and being like, you need space or I need space. It's a partnership, mate. If you need the space, you should get the space too.
Oh, no, but when they're blowing up, you kind of want the space. You want them to stop and be happy, but then
Yeah, I'll save some examples because I know I'm taking too long. But I think that's beautiful. You just watch them and give them space.
Okay.
Don't force it on them.
Okay. Any tips for turning off the logical brain and turning on the emotional brain instead, tuning into the emotional brain instead?
So you did it, you're doing it in that description that you gave about you needing space, because that's your emotional brain. Your logic brain is probably like, I can keep pushing the swing, or I can keep doing this thing. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be some devastating thing that happens, but you're picking up that you're getting stressed.
Yeah.
And so what I try and do when I'm like that, and it happens frequently to me, I've got such a sensitive temperament that I get fired up when someone hasn't picked up after their dog, or someone cuts, a cyclist cuts through people that are crossing a road or something like that. And what I'm learning to do, and I'm still haven't perfected it, is I'm like, what's going on in my body? And that is interoception. It's like, how am I feeling? As in my actual feeling. Because a lot of even at the severe end of the spectrum, mental illness presents as tummy pains, feeling dizzy, nausea, and all that stuff. And it's a manifestation of our emotions in our body.
Yep.
And if you can learn to tap into that, that is how you, because I'm not logically, I'm fine, I'll just keep riding the bike. But I'll just get stressed and stressed and stressed if I don't tap into it. And that's how I help calm myself. I go, that's my body feeling like this. I'm feeling red and hot because I'm frustrated and annoyed and all those things. And then I can bring myself back down. There's no logic in that. It's really just, how do I tap into the emotional part of my brain? And I think you're really good at doing it too. I was in my 30s when I learned that.
Okay. Well, here's another one I need you to explain. This question came from someone, and I wish I'd asked it. Explain face stories, please.
Yeah, so they're
what is it?
They're in the book, and it's funny. It's the last thing. The book was almost going to go to print. Yes, the book that I feel uncomfortable sits on the table during this podcast. The book talks about is the last thing I put in the book, because I submitted the book and it was like, cool, that's final. And I was like, actually, I want to put one last thing in just in case I never write a book again, which I can't conceptualize doing that. But the face stories are what my mum used to do to me when I was stressed and also when I was struggling to fall asleep. And she would tell a story and trace the story using her finger on my face. So my nose would be a mountain, my eyes would be pools, my hair would be a forest. And so to be a story about like a little boy and a little girl going on an adventure.
Being brave, crossing the mountain, going into the...
and so they'd be walking
ice
like
buckets.
and really gently, lightly touching across my face and tracing their journey.
So it's a soothing thing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So probably best done at bedtime if you wanted to have your first crack at it.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. There's all different things you can do like that. Like Evie will sometimes ask for a face story. Sometimes she asks for like letters on her back. And so we'll go through the alphabet and I'll have a different like name for every, or a different word for every letter, like just tracing all of those things. And what I'm trying to do is mindfulness. I'm trying to get her to connect with the moment and using touch in a way that's almost therapeutic about stress and finding calm. And that my mum, and that's like, that didn't come from my training, that came from my mum. So it's just this beautiful bit of my childhood that's in the book.
Yeah, okay. That's brilliant. Love it. Hey, Billy, tips on connection when you're not the preferred parent?
Yeah, so honestly, there was like probably 40 questions that were about this, like longs. It's really hard. I think, so a really big challenge of being the preferred parent is that whenever that kid is melting down, you're the one that has to hold it.
Deal with meltdown, yeah.
And so what can happen is you get resentful that you're like, I'm always the one. You're reinforcing that connection, but the other parent's missing an opportunity to build a healthy one. And especially if you've got another kid, the preferred parent for the one who's blowing up will feel like they're neglecting the sibling.
Oh, God, it's complex, isn't it?
Yeah. And so what you need to do is not, well, the hardest time is the put downs. Dad has to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
You have to have some lower intensity challenges that dad constantly has a crack at being the person that helps with it. So dad can't be, if bedtime's the hardest and only mum can do it at the moment and always wants mum for everything, don't start with bedtime and be like, nah, bad luck, dad's doing it. And the kid's like screaming and dysregulating, I want mummy. Find things getting in the car or whatever that are less challenging, but still a bit of a challenge. And the dad hones his skills and connection through those moments.
That'd work.
You also have to have, with every sibling, for people who have multiple siblings, you have to have protected time with every kid.
Yeah.
And there's a real vulnerability in the cruisy kid not getting that protected time, especially with the preferred parent for the kid who's struggling.
Okay. I'm going to have to re-listen to that combination you just laid it there. Makes complete sense, but I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's good.
It's tough for those of us with more than one kid because you feel like you're neglecting the needs of one of them. And it's,
But that's just also a bit of a cycle of life, isn't it? Some kids going to just need more support for a period of time.
Yeah, definitely.
Try and still do the...
parents experience, I don't know if you do too, but I do. A lot of parents experience, I'm one person, I've got multiple kids with me and both of them need my help, you know?
Yeah.
And especially the one that kicks off and really prefers me, you can really get stuck with that kid too much and unintentionally the other kid misses out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced that.
I was going to say, man, it was a joke, wasn't funny. I was like, no, my kids carve out the time when they see the other one struggling and completely make space for their sibling to be dysregulated. It's fun.
Podcast journey over. Yeah, you perfected it.
So I like a joke to lighten the mood sometimes because I feel like it's about to get heavy.
If you're aiming for that, you're probably going to be eternally disappointed.
Yeah. Hey, ideas for connecting with teenagers when they don't want to engage.
Yeah, so
I need this answer. I'm going to bank this one. Go.
Yeah, I've got a lot of teens. Like I've got teens where, so for example, I see a really distressed teenage girl who's going through a really hard time at the moment. And mum came in yesterday and was like, she's refusing to come in and see you. She's in the waiting room. Can you go out and talk to her? And I was like, no, I'm respecting her choice in that space. I don't want to go out and force her to talk to me. And I think with teenagers, what we do is we just put too much pressure in with them because we see them as adults. We're like, no, you're going to talk to me now. Like you live in this house, you're grown up. Like, you know, as kids get older, we're more and more vulnerable. We've got to remember like a lot of the higher functioning parts of their brain aren't fully formed till they're 25. And a lot of us, including me, didn't really figure out emotional regulation until my 30s. Teens are hypersensitive to judgment, rejection, you know, peer rejection especially. They're trying to fit in. And so the trick is be really, really gentle. Like there was a lot of people that sent in beautiful information about this that we couldn't use, about like just really subtle cues. So like little winks, little signals to say I'm here for you and stuff that doesn't risk them feeling socially isolated or embarrassed, going at their pace. And the teens, it's the long game. The teens, they just want to know and facilitate opportunities for connections with teens that are practical and around what their needs are. If they need to get around to places, if they're really into something, see if you can just gently explore their world with them and make it a bit easier for them to live practically and just wait for opportunities. But teens, you've got to be really careful. You don't force conversations on them because you'll push them away. And I've seen kids that I have just hummed with really lose the connection. A beautiful girl that I was seeing yesterday, having this great conversation with her, and I was like, what are you into and stuff? And she was telling me all this really cool stuff. And then the mum was like, oh, tell Billy about video games. And she just completely shut down and didn't want to talk anymore to me. Didn't talk the rest of the session.
Because mum said...
the lead was taken off her. Do you know what I mean? Mum was doing this beautiful thing of being like, because I see her brother, so mum knows that her brother and I connect over video games, so she was trying to facilitate that. But she just had a voice in that room and it came away from her from a really good place, but just shut down. And she apologised in the room. Mum was like, I'm really sorry I stepped in, you were talking. But it was, almost impossible to get her back then. So, and it's okay. There's nothing harmful in that. We just let her give space and Mum and I spoke. And then the next time, hopefully I'll get a chance to talk with her, just her and I.
This whole situation, the sort of various ones you described, is probably my biggest blind spots, thing I stuff up. That whole they don't want to talk now. I know what you're saying, but I'm like, I know we're going to talk now, particularly on some things. And I'm like, no, we need to discuss this.
So what do you mean? Because I think I know, but what do you mean you have to talk about it?
I'm like, so I get this mix of like, you got to nip things in the bud because you can't talk about things later, right? So that's one teaching, right? Like you're addressing something 6 hours after you've been in the playground doesn't make sense, but I want to talk about it in the playground then because it's just happened. And they're like, I do not want to talk about this right now because maybe they're embarrassed or they're sad or they're just like, no, like this has just happened. I don't want to do it. And I'm like, no, I want to talk about it now. I don't know what to do. I find that so hard.
Yeah. So if they're dysregulated and you're not connecting with them, they're not going to learn anything.
No, but they're not that dysregulated. They're just like, no, we're not talking. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, they probably are a little bit if they're like that. No, it's not. No,
You're
I
right.
know what you mean. They're not fully blown.
They're not blown. They're not crying.
But they're like, I just want to ignore it and move on and keep playing. It's okay to ignore it. I think people worry and be like, no, they're not going to get better at like this.
Yeah.
Ideally what you do, perfect situation, is you connect with them, help them come back down to perfect calm, and then guide them back in to successfully do the thing. Talking to kids and saying you need to share that kid you pushed in front of them and all that stuff, that doesn't help them know how to do it better. That just risks them feeling shame about failing at something, especially socially or emotionally with their peers. What you need to do is connect with them and then guide them back in and be like, I'm going to help you really succeed at this and feel good about yourself in the thing that I intended you to do or really want you to get good at. Saying no to kids and putting emphasis on the bad thing they did doesn't help them at all. What we want to do is what would we expect of you that is developmentally appropriate and how do I help you achieve it? If you can't do that, it's fine as well. But the after conversation, there's so little gain in that besides helping kids feel connected, secure attachment, unconditional love. Think about the next time we come to the playground, I'm going to really set you up. We'll have narratives around a pretend play in our stories, and then I'm going to guide you in. I'm going to scaffold you with as much support as you need to succeed at the thing you struggled with last time, and then I'll celebrate it with you.
Yeah. I'm stuck on something you said. I reckon it's shame is what I'm doing.
Well,
not deliberately. I'm drawing attention to it. I've got to go back and listen to Shame episode.
But remember the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is like,
5?
Parenting without shame. Remember the Titans. Yeah. Because that's what Denzel does. Shames Petey.
Shames Petey.
Yeah. So I like.
Sorry.
There's a whole app on that stuff. I won't get caught in it.
How do you build a connection as good as the one between Dr. Nick and Billy? I haven't read the questions this week.
To be fair, you got them at like 6:30 or something.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really beautiful because how has it happened? Because it's relevant to how we build connections with kids.
How has this happened?
Is it because of like
exposure, understanding each other?
Yeah.
We're talking.
When do you and I feel the most connected?
Probably here.
Yeah, but also out in public when we're having fun or together, off the mic. So we're having fun. Do you know what I mean? When we're having fun, that's when I feel the most connected to you.
Totally.
When we're just in tune and we're humming. And that's the deepest form of connection that we'll have. Do you know what I mean?
Humming.
Is where we're just experiencing shared joy.
Yep.
And that's a really important thing to make sure it happens frequently, ideally every day, with every person in our life that matters to us, like that we live with, you know what I mean? And you and I, every time, you know, I reckon we're pretty good at, like, most of the times we catch up with some joy. There's always on the pod, because I think we've just gotten so used to it that we really enjoy this together, and it's a shared thing that we believe in and get to celebrate about ourselves. But it happens in public as well, you know, and we had this beautiful, I reckon our friendship really deepened when we walked around carrying babies on us and just did laps, you know, and it was this beautiful opportunity for us to really get to know each other and have a laugh and things like that. Because there's heaps of stuff that we don't have in common, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but the things that we do are what bind us.
Yep,
Do you know
totally.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could have used you last night, because we were at Hawthorn Footy Club, asked us to come talk, and I was like, you know, they were like, when they called up and asked to have a chat and see if we'd come, they were like, oh, who do you go for? And I was like, no one. I couldn't name a player. But it was really funny, because I did the session, and at the end of it, I was like, even halfway through it, I was like, oh man, this is not going well. We're not connecting with these people. And it's really funny, because I've been reflecting on it since driving home, being like, oh man, I didn't land that. And then I was like, actually, at the end, they all asked amazing questions. So many of the players and other people came up and thanked me and asked deeper questions and all that stuff. And it was just because my form of connection in those talks, I really am looking to sense that people are really getting a lot out of it and stuff. But that's just not what a typical footy player is like. They're not the Oprah crowd. You know what I mean?
No,
Jumping up in the chairs and jumping up and down and going, this stuff's amazing. And so it's an important lesson for all of us that other people will connect differently to the way that we do, and we shouldn't just be in tune with our feelings. We should be in tune with how other people are going, you know, and it will be different to how their expression of connection and feeling safe and secure will be different to how we express it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But yeah, so just learning with kids. We'll talk to some longs that beautifully articulate this as well.
Okay. Billy, last short. How do you know you have a good connection with a child?
What have you got for that? How do you know you're well connected to Evie?
She smiles. She looks excited. She's excited to see me before, you know, from a distance.
You're downplaying that a bit. She's pumped to see you.
Yeah, you can see it from a distance before we actually meet. If I see her from 10 metres away, she's excited.
Yeah.
So that means the connections, everything you've done up into that stage is probably a reflection from 10 metres away of how they meet you.
Yeah. And how else? What about when she's struggling?
She might come to you.
Yeah, she comes to you, doesn't she? You've been a person who, when she's really struggling and upset and feels unsafe and dysregulated and stuff, she comes to you, doesn't she?
Yeah, she would,
Yeah,
in the absence of you. And
No, even when I'm there sometimes. She does that with a couple of the boys. Like, she'll be, I want to be lifted up into your arms.
That's a good connection.
To Benny's, to Dan's, like those guys. So that's, you have earned that connection, and all kids need to have at least one person that they feel like that with, that they go to. They move towards them when they're struggling. They move towards them when they feel joy and celebrating like who they are in the world. That's how your girls are connected to you. It's how your girls are connected to Henry. It's how my kids are connected to me. I'm really lucky that there's kids in clinic that I'm connected with. Remember, connection is different to attachment. There's a lot of kids in clinic that I have.
What's the difference?
So attachment is really like this, the deepest bond that we have. It's like unconditional love and connection. No matter what happens, I'll still be there for you. Connection is really about, like, we get in sync with each other. And I'm really lucky that often teenagers, because I've journeyed with them for so long, I have this really beautiful connection with, that I can come in and I can tell, like that story I told last time, I can tell within 2 minutes how those kids are going because I know them so well. Before they've even said anything, I can pick up just the way they walk in the room, the way they're holding themselves, and that's because I'm connected with them. I don't have an attachment bond with them. I'm just connected to them so well that I feel what they feel without them saying it. And that's, you would know that too. You'd be able to look at Winnie and Ron without them saying anything and be like, yeah, they're relaxed, they're comfortable, they feel safe, or actually one of them's starting to struggle a bit, or actually she feels really uncomfortable and she's not saying it. You know, that's the connection stuff. That's how we know.
All right. Short's done, Billy. A little bit of feedback from a few listeners.
Yes, I think we're going to take it in turns here, aren't we?
You're going first with the first one, if you need it.
Beautiful. No, I've got it. Okay, so feedback. Hi, Billy and Nick. Massive fan. So excited to have you guys back. I wanted to share a reflection that relates to connection. We have 2 boys, an easygoing 4.5-month-old and a highly sensitive 3-year-old. Our 3-year-old has always been a massive mummy's boy, and I found connecting with him come so easy because of how attached he was to me. I think I was I think I was that highly sensitive child that was not allowed to have feelings. So while this triggers me, I also get what he feels with the disappointment and little things so intensely. Since baby has come along, he's completely gone off me and never felt more distant from him, and found it so hard to connect, especially when he only wants daddy for everything, quite often yelling at me to get away. The situation has become desperate as I was learning to share my time between the two, both having hugely different needs and dealing with some serious out-of-control aggression from the 3-year-old that had me fearing for the baby's safety daily. Trying to fill his bottomless cup felt impossible, and I still haven't figured that out yet. To cut to the reflection, we went out to the Jurassic World exhibition the other week. In hindsight, he was probably terrified for a child of 3, and possibly contributed to the rest of the day. Afterwards, the 3-year-old melted down, lots of challenging behaviour, and was getting increasingly tired. The final straw was being told he couldn't eat the communal colouring pencils at the ice cream shop, resulting in very loud screaming. Shout out to the very understanding patrons and staff of the amazing ice cream at Billy's Van Creamery. It's a coincidence that's named that street. We don't have
An ice cream factory?
Long hot walk back to the car, refused to sleep by hitting himself in the face every time he got drowsy, and melted down the entire 45 minutes home and for a further 45 minutes after that. We were all tired and frustrated, but I put my PCP hat on and knew that what he needed more than anything in this moment was love and understanding, and definitely not many words. He reluctantly let me approach him. Dad needed some time out from the situation, and then demanded I pick him up and walk in circles around the car in the garage. I felt his sobs racking his entire body, and how desperate and intense the pain he was feeling. It transported me back to being a child, often having these big feelings and being shamed for them or ignored and left to deal with them on my own. I felt the tears well up in my eyes as I walked around and recognising the significance of breaking that cycle for him, and whispered to him that I know exactly how he's feeling, that I'll always love him and will never give up on him. He recognised that I was crying and stopped and put his hands on my face and asked, "Why are you crying, Mummy?" I said, "Mummy used to feel like this when she was little, and I know how hard it is, and that I will never leave you or let you go through this on your own." He then smiled at me through his tear-streaked face, hugged me hard, and asked me to come inside and play with him. I've never felt so connected to him at any point, and I feel like we were finally on the path back to how we once were, never the same, but able to move forward with our new family dynamic. It was one Winslow out of a month of Griswolds, but I've held on tight to that feeling because it's all worth it in the moments like that. Thank you both for keeping it real. Your work reaches further than you could ever know.
How
There's
good.
a couple of emotional ones coming, just to warn you.
Okay. That was great. Hi, Dr. Billy and Nick. I have a Winslow for you relating to the connection episode. So I was taking my 2 and 4-year-old kids to an indoor sports class yesterday. We had about 2 hours to kill afterwards before a GP appointment that afternoon. Side note, I was really nervous about the appointment after having had a bad experience with the GP, and this was my second to go at finding a new one for my son, who we are going through some behavioural issues with. So we're in the sports program and then stayed to have a lunch there at the cafe, and there's no one really around. Then a carer comes in with someone who's disabled, non-verbal, in a mobility wheelchair. My kids tend to always do the usual thing that small kids do in approaching this kind of person, where they make a comment about their appearance or how they present. They both mentioned, "Oh, he can't talk," or "He's not talking, he's making noises, but he can't talk." I did the usual thing of saying how everybody is different and some people need a wheelchair to get around and they use different ways to talk. But then something really beautiful happened. Some more people arrived, and it became apparent that they were meeting up for a class with their carers to play a game of bocce on the indoor basketball court. My kids wanted to go in and watch them, so I let them. And as they were watching, they were able to see the game and how it was played. And then gradually we ended up all joining in and playing for about an hour with this group. My kids were able to go from being a little bit scared of the guys in wheelchairs to, after playing a game with them, able to see that even when the guys were non-verbal, they were able to communicate and they were friendly. I just thought that this is the most amazing thing that could have been experienced, and wanted to share it because it made me feel like the connection piece goes beyond the parent to child and also to the other, and it goes to the others in the community that children won't naturally connect with and be open. And it opened up such a beautiful way to talk to my kids about communication and connection with other people, even though they can't talk. As always, I'm another listener who is beyond grateful for all the work you guys have done for us as a community and for what you have done personally in our own little family, helping my husband and I navigate some really difficult parenting curveballs. Thanks a million.
Beautiful.
Wow.
What an amazing group of humans, including the kids like that. And that's what true inclusion's about.
Cool.
Okay. This might be the most important email I've ever written. While I want to share my experience with others if it might help, this has also been very cathartic for me. Hi team. I know you don't know me, but I like to think of you as part of my team. You've helped me and guided me so much, and you don't know this, but I've laughed and cried together many times. I feel very connected to you both. I write today because I have my very own little Edward Scissorhands and can relate personally to connection and how and why we must connect with our children. My little Edward, that's not his name, but I call him that in this letter, is a beautiful, kind, sensitive and complex little boy who's also autistic. Just like Edward Scissorhands, my little Edward is different. He doesn't always fit in, and he struggles with understanding normal people's behaviour. He's a beautiful boy, and my love for him feels deeper than any ocean and as big as the tallest mountains. Because he can sometimes live in his own world, it can be difficult to connect with him, but when you do, the reward is immense and the payoff is immeasurable. My thoughts on connection relate to neurotypical children also, as I have 2 of those as well, but today my story is about little Edward. Little Edward is my youngest, and at 8 years old, he has had a tumultuous life already. Relationships have not been easy for him, basic social and personal skills have been difficult to learn, emotions are big and confusing, and at times impossible to control. Communication and speech has been a massive challenge, and sometimes these things shut down completely. But to paint an accurate picture, you must know that my little Edward has the most beautiful soul, has compassion and empathy beyond most people's understanding, and is wise and often so insightful that it stops me in my tracks. This child has taught me more about life than any experience I've had in my 40 plus years on this planet. I wish that everyone was as lucky as me to have a little Edward in their life. Despite the challenges, he's a very intelligent boy, and we decided mainstream school was best for him. We sent him and his siblings to the best school that we could afford. We were fairly confident with that support that the school had in place for him. His first year at school, though, was explosive and filled with chaos. Lots of getting into trouble, making bad choices, being defiant and oppositional, and being sent home regularly, followed by disciplinary actions, including suspensions. I don't know where my primal motherly instincts went, but in a way to appease the school, we put in place punishments, withdrew favourite items and activities, and this one kills me this day, excluded him from special family time and experiences. Though the harder we came down, the more impact we would have and potentially change his troubling behaviour at school. It didn't help. What I didn't realise at the time was that this beautiful kid, my little Edward, was needing connection. I didn't need to try and fix him like so many others were trying to do. Something dramatically changed for us throughout that first year, and this was before I found your podcast. I'm not even sure what the impetus was, but my mindset changed from how can we change you to you're not coping, how can we help you? I lowered the demands and expectations and increased the love and connection. I began strongly advocating for my child and fighting for him every day. It didn't change things overnight, but slowly we saw progress and we started to see much more success in the second year of school. School is still hard, but I can testify that connection has been everything to the success of little Edward. Don't get me wrong, I'm still not great at this and I'm learning every day. I often mess things up big time. I'm a stressed out mum who's time poor. I have bad coping skills and unhealthy habits to deal with these things. My mental health is inconsistent and needs attention. I don't always have great support from my husband, and this affects my parenting and my general disposition. I'm still learning to co-regulate and have been very guilty of becoming as dysregulated as my child during certain times. Through listening to you, though, I've made positive steps to get on top of this and address these things. I wanted to thank you for your impact. You're changing the lives of so many, including mine and my family's. I'm still working through your catalogue and have just started the book, but I have a deep respect and utmost gratitude for your work and everything that you do. In a practical sense, connection looks for us like playing hide and seek together as a family, doing a puzzle together, having cuddles, tickling and rolling around on the floor. It's playing pretend and coming up with silly games. It's telling jokes that make no sense and singing and dancing together. It's listening to endless details of areas of special interest. I'm still working on this one. It's a thumbs up from across the room or a wink or blowing a kiss. It's including everyone, even when things are tough. And although my husband isn't great at these things, and they certainly don't come naturally to him, he too can be seen doing these things, and he's also always learning. I felt it necessary to share the story of little Edward so maybe that others can learn from my mistakes. Punishments and the withdrawal of love and affection don't work, and in fact can spiral into a world of total disconnection. When little Edward is feeling connected, he thrives in all areas of his life. This stands true for our children too. My last thoughts on connection are in a wider context, but this message is the same. The connection is powerful and fundamental to our lives. People who experience connection have a better quality of life. Connection to others can vastly improve your mental health. Connection is the antidote to addiction. Connection can prevent suicide. Connection improves your relationship with your spouse, both physically and emotionally. Children who are not connected to their families will turn to peers seeking for that connection, sometimes leading to unhealthy relationships. And connected communities have better outcomes. Thank you for taking the time to read my story and my thoughts from a developing parent who needs as much help as she can get, and who appreciates you both very much. Sorry.
Big one.
Yeah, there's a couple of big ones. Okay. Yeah, how amazing.
Heineken Billy. I did the beer thing there, Billy. I did the Heineken Billy. Still gets me, that one. That's what they said. To Billy and Nick, a bit about me. I'm a proud Aboriginal, Wurundjeri and Kaurna mother, musician, artist and advocate. I've worked with, in both policy and practice roles, Aboriginal children and young people across education and youth justice for going on 9 years now. Giving back to my community in the ways that I needed giving back to my community the ways that I needed growing up is a key part of my identity. So much of what you talk about in your own lived experience, Billy, speaks to me. My family, in a nutshell, suffer from intergenerational trauma as a lasting result of the effects of the stolen generations in my family of whom are still alive today and live with the complexities of that trauma. In addition to this, my mother, non-Aboriginal, I have not spoken to in over 8 years as a result of alcohol and drug use that hit its peak, and I walked away from a relationship that was unsafe and unchanging. My father, a proud Aboriginal man, though with his admitted faults, still has been on his own journey to heal with us. His 5 children since splitting from our mother. Sorry, I've buggered that up. My father, a proud Aboriginal man, though with his admitted faults, still has been with us along the journey to heal with us. His 5 children since splitting from our family, from my mother. Key to this survival is our connection to culture, community, and our art, music, and family. The healing power of that connection, which is unmatched. I cannot tell you what a perfect time this episode could come, though I feel that way about many of your episodes. I've been wanting to write to you for some time now, but I felt I couldn't quite articulate all that I have to thank you both for. It's connection. Long story, not so short. My son turned 3 in October. We have had, as many do, an incredibly hard journey in supporting him in the way that he needs. From suspected ASD, ADHD in initial assessments, which there were about 10 of them before finally getting through to early access NDIS, to having withdraw him from childcare as it became unsafe and completely not informed or trained in supporting children with additional needs. When I say unsafe, I mean hearing the workers scream at our son when he would have a meltdown, which at this point had become extremely violent, especially towards himself, excluding him from group activities and encouraging him to have naps when the naps made bedtime horrific, staying up until 12 a.m. because he was too hard to deal with. Then finally, when we called a meeting, attacking us with the narrative that our son is inherently bad, violent for no reason, and the suggestion that we let him get away with this behaviour at home. This was followed by 3 childcares refusing him access to their service due to additional needs, all while we struggled to navigate those 10 plus assessments and services upon service. One childcare said to us at point blank, "We already have too many autistic kids here." Absolutely heartbreaking. I cannot explain what this was like. When we relied on other families to support with care so we could work, we were met with not being listened to around our son's needs, and again blame and denial around his escalated behaviours. We had become desperate between no sleep and constant bloody injuries that my son would inflict upon himself and us. He busted his face so badly, headbutting doorways and cots and walks and
Maybe in walls and floors.
walls and floors, that he put his teeth through his lip and split his frenulum. And so many occasions we would restrain this bruised and busted child and ourselves becoming hysterical. God. We resorted to smacking for about a couple of months until my dad, who was quite physical with us as kids, that we were not
To my dad said, sorry.
So to my dad said that we were not parenting in line with what he knew of our beliefs, that he did not want us to live with all the regret he lives with daily, wishing he had done things differently or better, but purely from a place of desperation and lack of tools. He had some nuggets of wisdom. I was beside myself that we'd gotten to this point, and so goes, and that goes against what I know about children and young people and my own want to stop intergenerational cycles of pain. And then we found PCP, a parenting tool resource that didn't guilt, blame, but was accessible, uplifting, healing of my own inner child, and gave me strategies that we were not getting anywhere else. Since finding PCP, our parenting is now in line with who we want to be, and the improvements, while still have no therapies or OT involved, and the improvements, while we still have no therapists or OTs involved, just night and day to where we were. Oh, that's cool. We found a childcare who value our son's uniqueness and have worked with us to implement strategies that work for us at home and for them at childcare, and it is working. Sorry. To capitalise, terrible read, sorry. Violent meltdowns don't turn into injuries anymore and are short-lived, and we have strategies because of PCP. My son now tells me to take deep breaths and can better articulate when he needs space, and is using the language and tools we have practiced for months, even when it felt hopeless. I feel a connection again with my son and my husband because we have shared this approach and we are all on the same team again. God. This love letter is the example of how connection must come before co-regulation. Oh, God, this is good. Sorry. Those co-regulation tools and language you've shared are part of our household script now. Not every day is a win, but the fact that we have made such huge progress is how we de-escalate and all, as a family, co-regulate. I couldn't have imagined it could be like this. I've been going back over your catalogue, and it shouldn't surprise me now, but always does, when I apply a new episode to my parenting tool belt, whether it be drop-offs, which were horrific after months away from a care setting, and ending the last one on a nearly broken nose, more reasons we moved him. Another long story of negligence at the centre. Picky eating, bedtime, or those episodes that help me contextualise my own trauma and help me better understand how I can do better for my own son. I'm continually floored by just how practically useful and philosophically and therapeutically relevant they are. Every single episode. And none of that would have come to us as a community if not for the connection that the two of you share with us and the connection with us that you foster through sharing with us so generously, bringing us in for the Winslows and Griswolds and making us laugh. Nick and Billy, you're the perfect blend of clinical and practical, and what you bring out in each other is beautiful. To Billy, don't listen to that psych around your projection in your work. As someone else who's lived experience, the only person who could connect with me as a kid and younger adult were people that channeled their lived experience. I hear you and see you in what you do, and your clients and family will value the place that this comes from. To Nick, stop undervaluing what you bring to the podcast. Your ability to hold yourself accountable for your mistakes and share that with us while making us and Billy laugh is more meaningful than you realise. Your cackles and sighs are always a highlight of my episode. You sound like an amazing husband and friend and dad, and your community and the PCB community are better off for it. It's worth noting that my fiery redhead husband is one who brought PCP to me via Instagram Reels to begin with. So I felt so attacked in the trenches, and the suggestion felt like criticism. I felt no one could understand what we were going through, and the parenting advice online was always missing the complexity of the experience. You've been the first and only podcast I've listened to. Thank you for saving us from the depths of that experience and providing the tools, resources, and much needed laugh and nostalgia trips with the movies, practical application of theory and connection that we do need. I'm sorry this has been long, but this episode felt like the perfect time to write to you, because ultimately it's all comes back to connection. From you, from my dad, from us to our son. None of the healing or behavioural change is possible without connection. Excuse the chaotic writing and probable grammar, spelling errors as I type this out while my son uses me as the jungle gym.
So amazing. Beautifully read, mate. Beautiful message. I appreciate that so much. That stuff just keeps
us going. You get those long, you get that feedback. You're like, all right, how many more do I think I'm at about 390. I'm going to double down. I'll go down. Off the back of that one, I'll give you another 100.
But yeah, beautiful. All right, now we've got the longs. And there's not that many. So
no, there's not.
It was very hard to cut it down.
Oh, I just lost my spot a little bit, Billy. Sorry. Question. Okay. Get myself together, Billy. Hi, Billy and Nick. Just wanted to send an email to thank you so much for making this podcast and being a wonderful resource for all of us developing parents out there like myself. I jumped on board late last year, but kind of wish I'd listened to my sister-in-law who recommended it almost a year ago. This episode of Connection was quite timely. I have 3 kids, 9, 8 and 5, and life certainly is busy. Of the 3, I'm much more likely to have power struggles with the 9-year-old, probably because we are quite similar. He's a deeply feeling kid and sometimes goes from 0 to 100 really quick and can get really emotional. Often, this comes out as anger or frustration and will often just keep at me and at me for ages. On other occasions, it's simply me trying to get him to do something that needs to be done and him resisting the request. I try to stay calm, but often I crack under the intensity, and so ensues the yelling tennis match. Looking forward to your answer on this one, Billy, just as a side note. It's always just escalates things for both of us, but once it happens, it's so hard for me to pull back once I've lost it. Initially, I'll be ropeable at the situation, feeling hurt and betrayed, but inevitably, I always end up feeling a huge amount of shame from letting myself and him down by not being able to keep my cool. It doesn't happen every time. Like a lot of things, it depends on a number of factors. I've never really got angry at anything ever before having kids, and the fact that I'm capable of getting this angry when I just never thought it was possible is just really unsettling. However, I do think I'm quite good at repair. I'll always go and apologise to him at the next possible opportunity and try and explain that I'll always love him and that even parents make mistakes and I'm working on it, and that it would be great if we could work together on how we can limit these negative encounters from happening. If it was a horrible preschool meltdown from both of us, I tend to be angry for an hour or so, and then once the regret and shame hits, I'm basically counting down till I pick him up from school and check him and apologise. My wife is also getting pretty triggered by me losing my cool, and this obviously just adds to my guilt. The problem is, no matter how many times I reflect, apologise and repair, eventually it happens again, and at some point or another, I'm just getting tired of feeling this way. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to be a great dad all the time, and probably need simply to not be so hard on myself. I do find I'm able to naturally connect more with the other two kids and just need to work a little harder at finding ways to connect with him, I guess. Sometimes I worry that each fight we have, it may slowly be pushing him away each time, even if I repair each time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one actually, as it does worry me, if I'm honest. After a particularly bad week last week, I got back to the podcast and for some guidance and help and listened to the co-regulation one. Great app, really helpful. I was actually going to email just to reach out for advice, but thought that would be weird and perhaps I'll just wait for an episode and post a question then. And then, lo and behold, I'm at the local pool yesterday with my family and I noticed Billy. That coupled with the fact that the today's episode is on connection, it was just pretty wild. I've seen the taglines of the connection before correction all over my parenting related Insta reels, but this episode really nicely illustrated the importance of it and how to do it. I think I actually do purposefully emotionally connect with my kids in calm moments, but could certainly do this more. And hoping this can put more in the bank. Put more in the bank. I love that. For when I really need the connection and the big feelings start. It can be hard to not get stuck in the trap of getting jobs done around the house when the kids are playing by themselves. But I'm going to try and deliberately connect for the sake of connection. I also definitely flick into logic brain when the power struggle begins, and I really love the message of engaging the emotional side and having the logical side play the supporting role. That's absolute gold. Anyway, I'm ranting now, but it's actually been helpful to type out my feelings. If I had a question, it would be this. What practical things can I do to try and connect and co-regulate when he's or any of the kids are becoming upset over something, but the rate at which he escalates is rapid, that things just get out of hand too quickly? Thanks again. Keep up the great work.
What did you think reading that?
Yeah. I was like, was I tired and writing this one night? I don't have three kids. I get that one.
Yeah,
you just escalate.
You're
just like, I want my bit.
Act out, power struggle, logic brain, guilt, shame. How do I repair this?
The guilt, shame. We haven't mentioned the word shame in 70 episodes. I don't reckon it's just ever come up, and it's come up twice here around this.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that. I don't do it. I do it.
Why? Why is it coming up when we're talking about connection?
I don't know. It came up before
because it threatens it, doesn't it? It threatens connection. There's probably nothing that threatens connection more than that.
Bit of shame.
Shame, yeah, because we just shut down when we feel shame.
Oh, it's the shutdown.
Yeah. So yeah, we just shut down from the outside world to protect ourselves, to protect everyone else from us. It's an awful feeling. So what's the step? This is going to be bad because I was like, there's a step before co-regulation, it's connection. But what's the step before connecting to the kid?
Assessing the situation?
Yeah, in terms of what?
What's going on for the kid?
What's the step before that?
I don't know.
What's going on for you?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you do that?
I don't know. I don't know.
So you have to connect with yourself, don't you?
Yes, okay.
Connect with how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Where do you do most of that work?
I don't know. What, in the moment? No, before. How do I do that?
So there's lots of different ways, and thinking like that Dad does a beautiful job of reflecting on what's happening, but what he wants to do now is find where's it coming from. Why is he, finding himself so angry? And often it'll be like imprints and schemas that we've built in our childhood. I did this amazing thing with my therapist last week where we did chair work. Do you know what that is?
No.
So I was just talking about like finding things really hard and beating myself up about stuff and all these kind of things. And he's sitting in a chair opposite me, but then he gets another chair and he sits in that and he says, he's like, talk to little Billy. He's like, talk to little Billy about how you think about him and how you feel about him and all this stuff. And then I'd swap seats and I'd talk as little Billy about how I was feeling. The reason he's doing that is because a lot of our coping mechanisms and our reactions, especially the emotional ones, are built in things that happened during our childhood. I overcompensate.
So they're just hardwired to that point.
They're very firmly wired, but they're not permanently wired. You can undo it by recognizing it and connecting with it, connecting in that dad, thinking about, why am I struggling with this so much? You know, is it because this is how my parents were, or I would never been able to do this to my parents, so I can't believe this kid's doing it to me? Or, you know, anger worked in a way, it got me to be compliant, but it didn't actually connect. You know, and then that shame he'll be feeling probably because he felt as a child, and he's worried that he's just, you know, redoing that cycle of aggression, hostility and authority, and then harming the kid emotionally.
Take those examples where you've just said, because I think they'd be common ones. This anger bit worked, or my parents did it this way. I could never do this to my parents. What do you do with that?
So be aware of it and be aware that, look, this is actually harming me and my kid, the way that I'm responding to this, and I'm emotionally dysregulating because it's dredging this up for me, and deal with that, heal that trauma yourself, whether it's going and seeing someone, it's recognizing it, it's finding the things that can heal that. And, you know, a lot of it is just realizing it's opening that up and going, man, that was so hard for me and I deserved better. I was a little kid, and like the mechanisms that I'm putting in place are no longer serving me. And I've got to find newer ones that is connection and love and understanding. And you're going to hear it at the end of this app. There's some beautiful examples of how to do that. But that's why that question was included, because you have to connect with yourself first. And when we're dysregulating, it's very hard to do. So do a lot of the work in like, how am I going? And that's called reflective practice, but we should do it with ourselves as well. If we're lucky to have a partner, we should do it with them. How are we going in parenting? And that's why this dad is finding it therapeutic just to write it out, because he's reflecting on his journey and wanting to do better and realizing he's beating himself up a bit. But if you can get to the core of the issue of why am I doing this, and it's probably to do with his own childhood and how he was parented, that'll be part of the process of healing it. Hard work to do.
That's hard stuff.
A lot of us haven't got the emotional maturity that we could have, including me, because we just haven't had that natural trajectory of, you know, support, accommodation and skill development.
Yeah, who's got the capacity as well? Like, yeah. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like that's the start. I'm like, yeah, I've got a job and I've got a parent and meals and drop off and pick up, and I want to do exercise occasionally. I like to go out with my mates. And
well, a lot of those things probably help you, but there's few things that are more important than
agreed.
Your emotional development. Your
bad cycle.
Yeah,
I'm in a bad cycle.
Look back, aren't you? What are the things you're going to look back on?
Yep.
In your final days, if you look back, it's going to be like enjoying your kids.
Yep, I hear that. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a real big priority for all of us, including me. I'm the same. I'm like, kids are playing well. I'm like, sweet, I'm going to get this house clean. I'm going to do this. And then Evie will be like, come play with us. And I have this hesitation.
Totally.
I'm like, I got to clean. You guys are okay on your own, but I actually need to make sure that I go stuff the house and I just get down and play with them and be led by them.
Okay.
Next one.
Hi, Billy and Nick. Just recently discovered your podcast after becoming a mum to a beautiful baby girl, and have been loving it. Your soothing voices are helping me stay awake during the night feeds and to stay calm when things chaotic. I thought you were going to say helps everyone get to sleep. I'm like, what?
We have had that.
We've had that. My other job aside from parenthood is a paramedic, and your recent episode gave me an interesting perspective when thinking about connecting with patients. I always try to connect with my patient no matter what their presentation, but sometimes this can be difficult if they are in a heightened or hostile state. In these situations, sometimes I've had to resort to informing the patient that due to them being sectioned under the Mental Health Act, I require to transport them to a hospital against their will, and this generally doesn't go over very well. Your discussion about approaching someone from a logical instead of emotional place reminded me of these scenarios. I was wondering if you could give some more tips for connecting with someone when they are extremely heightened, agitated or hostile. Sometimes I don't know where to start to find that common ground and connect with them. Thanks for your amazing work and great theme music. And that always gets stuck in my head.
What do you think? Have you got anything for that?
really heightened. God, I'm putting myself in the paramedic's shoes. No, gee, that's... sounds like they always try and connect. What if they're really heightened? I don't know.
How do you connect to someone emotionally?
If my kid, so let's say, not paramedic, but my kid's like hugely dysregulated, I just do the classic get down on their level.
Beautiful.
Because they're shorter, they're smaller than me. And just like, if they're open to it, like get my hands on them.
Yeah.
To give them a hug.
Yeah.
They might be like, don't touch me. Typically not actually. And then, just start there and just listen first.
Beautiful.
And just like try not to give any advice or fix it.
Yeah, beautiful. Great.
Yeah. I say here in the calm situation of a podcast, in the early hours of the morning, like in the moment, I'd find it really hard to do all those things. But if I had my brain switched on.
Yeah, so a really good step is don't try and fix it. That's your logical brain.
Yeah.
And your emotional brain needs to just connect and understand and validate. So practically what that looks like for me, and I think about more so my time in childcare with like really, bad kids where I grew up, and the program I was at for 4 years was all the ones that were really bad. And I'd have a lot of kids like that. And even a paramedic gave this to us like 2 years ago about what they would say is, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. And I think that's a really beautiful phrase.
That's a good one.
To say to kids as well when they're struggling, regardless of if we think it's ridiculous or it's actually their fault or whatever, I'm so sorry this is happening to you, helps them. Also saying I'm here, we've talked about that a lot. The other thing is just a lot of it is not what you say, and a lot of what I used to do, and I still do occasionally with like adults who are having a really hard time, or those older kids I used to look after, I would actually just sit down with them, and I would sit down and face out the same way as them. So I wouldn't be confrontational, and I'd be down and my body language would be open, and I would say simple things that were open phrases just to know that I was there, I see them and I feel them, and that I'm going to be here as long as you need me to be. There's no rush or pressure. I'm just sitting here. And I'm subtly watching and seeing, is that helping them? Are they tensing up more? Are they finally relaxing? And I'll adjust accordingly. I genuinely feel like it's a privilege to be in those situations. And so I know not everyone will feel like that, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to do, to connect with someone when they're dysregulating, but it's a skill. It's a skill that I think I'm pretty good at, but I've had a lot of training and a lot of exposure and opportunity. So I think seeing the kid who is struggling in your house, or the patients that are paramedics, using some of those phrases, and just like you said, getting down to their level and showing that you feel safe and you can handle it, is therapeutic for them and helps to connect. Don't fix it. Don't justify it. Don't ask, why did you do that? What's going on? Well, this is a consequence that should be happening because of what you did. Just connect with them. That's what all of us need in those moments, and the lesson comes after it.
Yeah, okay. Yep. Guilty of some of that.
Totally, so am I. I should be doing much better than I am with my kids, but it's something I'm working on.
Always working on it, Billy. Dear Billy, Nick, love your podcast. I am an aunt of two beautiful boys, 6 and 9. My partner and I were not able to have kids, so we pour a lot of our love into these two gorgeous kids, and they bring us an incredible amount of joy. We want to support the parents as well as the kids, so I started listening to your podcast probably 12 months ago, looking for information on kids with ADHD. Only the 9-year-old has been diagnosed with ADHD. I've found that I need to listen again and again to some of the podcasts, and through repetition, it has transformed the way that I approach my role as an auntie. One of the many examples is being able to identify what one of the kids is struggling with and seeing it simply as a developmental stage that needs scaffolding and focusing on for a few weeks. God, how's this person?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I need to listen to them repeatedly as well. I do. It is simple, but it stuck with me and gave me structure. This is a long-winded way of saying thank you. Also, side note, I also really love hearing two adult men discuss thoughts, feelings, and reflections on of when you hit the mark and miss it. Come to the right place. I think you're doing great work role modelling for other dads. Hey, to my question, I listened to the recent podcast on how to connect. It comes at a timely moment, as I notice Mr. 6-year-old struggling with big emotions, and when he blows, he really blows. He can slam doors, lash out at whoever is near him, and then say some really confronting things like, I want to die and I want to kill myself. I was caught off guard the first time I heard it. I don't think he means it that literally when he says it. I think he means I'm feeling a lot of things right now and don't know how to deal with it, and this breaks my heart. When it first happened, he locked himself in a room, so I sat on the other side of the door and told him I was there. I repeated, I'm here for you, buddy. When you need me, I'm not going anywhere. When I do this, he continues to tell me to go away and seems to escalate and double down more. I managed to get into the room. We started to play peekaboo to break the tension, and he started laughing and smiling. At the time, I thought I was distracting him and didn't know if that was the right thing to do. I know we probably need to do some work on emotional regulation, but when he slams the door and refuses to let me in, I don't know how to get to the connection part first. Talking to him at that point doesn't work, and I don't think he is a kid that wants to use a lot of words. He's pretty straight to the point. I am worried because I don't want to leave him alone dealing with big feelings. What is my question though? Is there something that I can do to connect with him first? Is that the first thing I need to do when he has a meltdown? Sometimes the meltdowns are so heightened and can involve arguments with his brother that I don't know what the first step should be to do that we can get to a place to deal with the big statements of, I want to kill myself. I feel out of my depth and overwhelmed when it happens. Any advice would be helpful. Thanks again for all your amazing work. Oh, I like this one, Billy. I like this one about what to do with the sibling when they're there as well. That's good.
Yeah, it just also shows like how important, people that aren't the direct parents of kids are. Like we talk about that a lot, but maybe we don't throw enough out to aunties and uncles. So really, really overwhelming for probably anyone that hears a child kind of talking like that as well. And thinking about what's going on for you first, and this is really overwhelming. This person sounds like they're really calm, but understanding that kid is just completely emotionally overwhelmed, and so they're kind of stuck in this really threatening state of mind of feelings and thoughts.
Gotcha.
And that means that they're flooded with just, in this kid's instance, this flight. Do you know what I mean? It's a defense mode that kid's going into of just, I've got to get out of here. They're also signaling they want help though by kind of communicating, I don't want to live anymore. And they're signaling that overwhelm, and we should never stop kids from saying that. We should see it as a cry for help, or what we call a kind of separation cry. And anytime someone is really struggling, what we want them to learn is the therapeutic and healing benefit of someone coming towards them. This kid's not there yet because he's closing the door. And whenever kids push us away, we should respond to it. That's how we're sensitive and responsive. We go, cool, I'm coming in too hot, I'm coming in too close. I'm going to give you the space. The temptation sometimes can be to just, no, I know what you need, and kind of push yourself on them a bit.
Guilty, yeah.
Yeah, which I do too, but I'm getting better at watching Evie and going, no, you're signalling to me that you're shutting down and needing some space. But I've got to learn the patterns to show you that I'm still there. And what happens is that the more and more we do that, the more and more we get that co-regulation connection wiring between our brains of saying cool, Nick knows how to respond to me when I'm struggling, and you over the years have gotten even better at picking up what I need in moments. And you've learnt that because of your emotional brain connecting with my emotional brain, not logic. You kind of, let's be honest, I'm not a very logical person, you know what I mean? When I'm struggling, I'm all about emotion and stuff like that. And you even sometimes catch yourself and you're like, no, I'm not going to fix it. You'll stop halfway through what you're saying something to me, which is beautiful. And we want to do that to our kids as well. Just be like, I've got to sit in this space with them, sometimes at a bit of distance, and just understand that. And what happens is over time, we get better and better at kind of understanding what they need in that moment. And then you'll get to the bits where it's really intense, where the kid's like, I don't want to live anymore, where because you've earned through hundreds of repetitions in lower levels of distress how to support them, then you're able to connect with them in those moments.
Okay, cool. At what point, Billy, do you get worried when kids start saying those sorts of things like, I want to kill you, I want to kill myself? At what point does it become an issue?
Yeah.
Or do you make it an issue?
Personally, I'd be worried the first time I hear it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From even younger kids. And we should focus on this more specifically throughout the year, but, suicide is the leading cause of death from 15 to 45 years of age in Australia. And devastates communities and things like that. What these kids are often doing though in the younger age group, they're just signalling, I'm so overwhelmed, and it's such a cry for help Do you know what I mean? It's kind of the biggest cry for help there is, isn't it? Saying that I don't want to live anymore.
It's worrying as hell.
And a lot of kids who are really physically violent, it's the same. They're just not able to verbalize it, but they're saying, I'm so distressed right now that I'm going to give the loudest cry for help I can by either like throwing a chair through a window or whatever.
Gotcha.
And we should see those things as signals for support. I think, I really believe that you shouldn't wait. The diagnostic criteria would say for a lot of these conditions, it's got to be present for 6 months and all that stuff. But the parents lead me, the caregivers lead me. Like when they're worried, I'm worried. And that's when we should put in support and help them and just realise that this kid is experiencing significant distress and how do we help them. The question a person asks, I need to help them with emotional regulation, which is true, but we don't want to like suppress that distress that kid is experiencing. And it's a good distinction of like, say Evie or one of your girls is blowing up. I don't want to stop them blowing up just by going, don't scream, don't, whatever. I want to address what's going on underneath that.
Yeah, okay.
And learn lower intensity, more helpful cries for help or signals that I need support.
Okay.
So you come to me instead of running away from me, because I will eventually learn how to be in sync with you so that you see me as just someone who connects and calms you, not someone who makes you explain why, says that scares me so much when you say that and I'm really distressed, I wish you wouldn't, but says I'm here, and then you connect and calm together. Okay.
All right, cool. Moving on, Billy. Dear Billy and Nick, there are moments in life so pivotal. God, let's just go again with it. Pivotal. What are you laughing at? Hey.
Well, yeah, I'm so glad I don't have to read all this.
Dear Billy and Nick, there are moments in life so pivotal they redefine who we are. Moments that cleave our lives from before and after. For me, discovering your podcast was one of those moments. When I found your show, I was at my lowest. Recently divorced, newly diagnosed with CPTSD.
Complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay. Compounding my daily struggles with ADHD and grappling with how to parent my beautiful 4-year-old son while navigating a minefield of triggers. I wanted to be the best parent that I longed for as a child. But my trauma left me paralysed, with the effort feeling akin to snowshoeing in quicksand. I'd lie awake at night wondering if he'd be better off with someone else, a father who could rise above his pain and shortcomings to be the parent he so deserved. Then I found your podcast. The work you do didn't change my life, it saved it. As a racialized Anglophone living in Francophone Quebec and with few friends outside my previous partner's circle, I felt utterly isolated, struggling daily to give my son a childhood I'd always dreamed of. But your words became a lifeline. Over the past 8 months, I've listened to every episode at least once, if not more, and shed countless tears along the way. PCP has completely changed how I parent and given me the skills to restore a relationship I once thought doomed to the same fate as my own with my parents. I've also started building a relationship with my new partner's daughter, a gorgeous, energetic orchid with seemingly limitless empathy and creativity. Early in our relationship, I saw a lot of myself in her, including her struggles with anxiety and shame, which triggered me so deeply and often that I began to dread seeing her, despite knowing the joy she brought into our world. This particular episode on connection resonated deeply with me. While my family fled a war that took many loved ones, we carried the trauma with us to our new home far away. My parents were survivors, but could do little to manage the trauma, never mind the challenges of daily life. So they took it out on my sister and I. We bore the pain of our family, and emotional connection felt not only impossible, but unimaginable. Thankfully, I don't recall much of my childhood. However, there has always been an overriding feeling of absence. Absence of warmth, of safety, of being truly seen. Because of you, I'm breaking that cycle. I'm learning to connect with my son in ways I never thought possible. Every laugh, every hug, every I love you doesn't just bring us closer, it heals the wounded child inside me. You two have a part in my healing as well. Your love and compassion for each other, your families, and all the parents out there demonstrates the power and beauty men hold when they are vulnerable. What you're doing is extraordinary. You're changing the world, one parent, one child, one healed heart at a time. Apologies for rambling, but now to the question. How do I support my child in building connection with a co-parent? My co-parent is a deeply compassionate and skilled psychotherapist, dedicating her expertise to supporting adolescent offenders and their victims. Yet, despite a professional knowledge, we've encountered a troubling dynamic with our now 5-year-old son. While he is remarkably tender, affectionate, and expressive of love towards me, his interactions with her often shift dramatically, marked by aggression and physical outbursts. This stark contrast in behaviour has left me reflecting on potential roots, including her own childhood trauma involving an abusive step-parent, which may unconsciously influence their relationship. Compounding this, her demanding schedule, frequently working evenings, means our son is often cared for by others. I sense his anxiety around this. During video calls, he repeatedly asked who will pick him up from daycare, only to hear that. Sorry, I stuffed that up. Apologies. He repeatedly asked who will pick him up from daycare, only to hear it's someone other than her because she's helping other children with their feelings. While I deeply respect her commitment to helping others, I worry his patterns reinforce his insecurity. I've gently shared resources like PCP, resources mentioned in the pod, to foster connection, but she's been hesitant to engage. I suspect her professional training, while invaluable, might unintentionally create a barrier to exploring external perspectives. Yet, I believe collaboration could bridge the gap. After all, even experts benefit from support. How might I frame these tools in a way that honours her experience while nurturing the possibility of healing, both for a relationship and the echoes of her past? Thank you, Billy and Nick. To anyone who's listening, this podcast is a beacon. Keep sharing it, keep living its lessons. Together, we're rewriting stories for our children and for the children we once were, with love.
Amazing. I love hearing people overseas listening to it.
Yeah, I know.
Especially amazing Canadians.
Yeah.
I think that there's a few things in this. The first one about being honest and vulnerable about being triggered by, seeing the struggles in the 12-year-old girl and going I dread seeing her a bit, even though it brings me so much joy because it takes me back to my childhood. And a lot of us that really struggle to connect with other people, if we've been harmed by other people when we try to connect them, especially in our childhood, it triggers that in us and triggers that kind of danger, fight, flight. People won't always help me in this. And if you've experienced a childhood that was chaotic, where you didn't know what the support was going to be like, would I get told off? Would I get ignored? Would I get in trouble? Or would I get consistently cared and comforted? It can change and mean that you really struggle with your own kids. We'll shut down and we'll go, nah. I'm like this with my kids. I worry about certain things that happened in my childhood being repeated, and so I struggle with those components. But this is a parent who's being really vulnerable and saying, I'm really worried about this. The bit about so I say this with utter kindness and gentleness, but those of us that work in this space, I meet lots of families in clinic who have parents that are mental health clinicians that really, really struggle with this stuff.
Why?
Lots of different reasons. I think certain type of people go into this work, those that are kind of trying to heal their own childhood trauma, I'm looking for myself in clinic. I think that we probably unintentionally have a really high threshold of worry because we see kids at the peak of distress that are really struggling. So we come home and go, you've got a stable life, you're happy,
gotcha.
And we can be a bit dismissive. I have to be really conscious of that because I see kids that are living in hardship that luckily our kids will never experience, who are having such difficult times in life that I might be dismissive of what's going on with my kids or my partner. And then the other thing about how do I get her to connect with this? It's beautiful for us, isn't it, to hear that some people are I just showed them some reels on Instagram and stuff like that. And even that beautiful mum at the start that's initially I felt threatened and I felt insulted that my partner was hey, check these guys out. But remember that even if they never listen to the podcast or never read a book or anything that we've put out in the world, just try and facilitate joy between that stepmom and that child. And joy is always easiest when we're at our best, when we're rested, when we're in safe environments, when we have the capacity to just have fun. We're not stressed, worrying about something, anxious about something coming up. And that's why it's kind of hard in the evenings and things when we're we need to get you in bed at time. It's why it's hard in the mornings because you're I need to get you out of here. And that's all the logical brain stuff. That's the logical brain going, we don't have time for joy. We're going to hear a beautiful bit of advice at the end about like a parent who's done something quite phenomenal to make sure that this child feels safe and that joy can be prioritised. But just think about that with your partners. It might not be a sit down and, hey, you need to really think about how you're parenting. It might be more subtle and just thinking about how do I help my partner really experience joy with this kid.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Do you feel like you do that?
I think, yeah, I mean.
Do you do that? Do you help Henry have joy with the girls?
No, I think they kind of find it a lot of the time. They have common things they like to do. I think she'd probably do more of a job than me, but not really deliberate. No, not deliberate. Yeah. I'm not deliberate. You do?
I deliberately do because Annalise is so busy and she's the person that makes this house function that often it's me that's playing with them and wrestling with them and stuff.
Gotcha.
That I'll often say, hey, let me do it. It's going to take me twice as long. Like I'm hopeless at doing that stuff. But you just sit down and enjoy them. And so like I'll often try really hard to make sure that I don't go to the bit that I find really easy, which is connecting with them, having joy, and say, I'll actually help out and do whatever chore needs to be done. Just enjoy them.
Can I be honest? I find it easier to do when it's just me with the kids.
Tell me more.
As opposed to when it's me and Henrietta and the kids. Maybe. I just find, I don't know, like, maybe because I like the rough housing with the girls.
Yeah, and what happens when Henry's there? Why is it harder?
Oh, they probably just gravitate to mum on some things. I don't know. Maybe I'm being... No, that's probably not true.
But there's a similarity, isn't there? Because Henry and Annalise are similar. They're very like motherly, caring, loving people, whereas you and I are the fun ones.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not about changing those parents, but it's just a classic thing. I've probably said it on the pod before. I often see a lot of mums in clinic where I'm like, do you guys have fun together? And they're like, no, that's what dad does.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's got to still be fun for the mum or the other parent, but it's really important that happens because that's like, obviously we're going to look back and it's going to be the times that we had fun with them, not the times where we nailed bedtime.
I reckon,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I reckon it's on me a bit to be like, I like to be in control of like the play and the next steps, and then if it's another parent, maybe I'm not. I don't know.
Something's going on. Because you're so good at it because you play.
I need to figure this out.
Yeah, well, just thinking about it because, you know, I think the other thing that happens to us sometimes, all of us that are really stressed and overwhelmed, is when they're playing and happy, you kind of go somewhere else. You just start thinking about all the stuff you got to do. You're like, sweet, this kid's fine. Now I can think about what I'm going to make for dinner, all that stuff I've got going on at work and all that stuff. And you've got to catch yourself and be like, actually, I need to be in this moment with this kid who's experiencing joy. And I need for me to be a part of that joy as well.
Yeah, right.
Especially with siblings, like just getting down and having fun with them. But I think the hardest bit is that's often when we peel off, either just mentally or physically, and we go, sweet, I'm going to go now, prepare dinner and stuff like that. And I'm not saying all the time, but just that'll be the richest thing that we do with kids. And that actually, as we've said, that protects us for when they say, I don't want to live anymore, or they're blowing up. The joy that we've celebrated with them and experienced and wired our emotional brains together will help us soothe them in those moments.
Cool. Hey, Billy. This is our last question.
Last long, yeah.
Hey, dear Billy Nick connection. Wow, what an underrated topic, but I actually think one of the most important ones. I'll be honest, I haven't listened to all your episodes yet. I am relatively new to the podcasts in general. I have so many voices in my head constantly talking that I dreaded adding extra. But then I discovered your podcast and it all just feels so natural. I now know I now don't mind being stuck in traffic because it gives me a couple of extra minutes with you both. After listening to your love episode, I found myself wondering if I had felt love as a child. At first I thought, I didn't. I knew I was loved, but did I feel it? But after the episode I reflected again and I realised I definitely felt the love, but it was the connection that wasn't really there. A little bit of context. I lived and grew up with my grandparents on a farm in Africa. My mum sadly passed away 10 days before my 3rd birthday. She was in a car accident. I was with her. I survived by some miracle. She was only 22. From what I've heard, she was a wonderful, loving mum and amazing human. I wish I could have known her. I just know we would have been best friends. Also, sadly, my dad was not capable of looking after me. He apparently had an alcohol problem and I'm sure mental health problems. He committed suicide when I was 6. He was only 26. I only found out about it being a suicide when I discovered his death certificate at 18. My grandparents told me that it was an accident while he was cleaning his gun. He'd been a personal guard for politicians. So there's a big rupture of trust when this came out, and I think highlights how unconnected we all were. Needless to say, I actually don't have many young childhood memories. Some flashes of what I think are memories probably combined with memories I created based on stories and photos. But saying all that, my grandparents were wonderful parents, and I was always felt blessed to have them, and I knew that they loved me. But there was something missing, and reflection has shown me that it was connection. I always envied my friends who had mums they could talk to about anything or get advice from. My grandparents tried so hard to do everything that was right for me, but I just never felt like I belonged or connected with them the way I saw my friends with their parents. Generational gap was obvious, and I know it was hard for them too. To make matters more difficult, I had to go to boarding school, very common back then at home, which further severed the connection because the teachers who were essentially raising us during the week were horrible, and I really struggled. I still have this image as a young child watching my grandparents drive away on a Sunday afternoon after dropping me off, crying, feeling so alone, knowing that I wouldn't see them for a whole week, sometimes more. It's a long time for a 7-year-old. Thinking back on connection, I can't recall having any adult in my life as a young person that I had a consistent, genuine connection with, which makes me so sad for my younger self and also so determined to create connection with my own children. Adding quite a disruptive early adulthood, lots of moving around, an abusive marriage and a very traumatic divorce, I finally found a safe space with my current husband. Connection is not his strongest attribute, and I'm desperately trying to get him to listen to your podcast, but he's a wonderful human who is patient with me as I reparent myself along with actually parenting. I also now have 2 wonderful energetic boys, 1.5 and 4. After I had my first, I had a bout of postnatal depression and it passed, and eventually I felt great. Loving being a mum, and I connected with him quickly and strongly. He's my little shadow. When he turned 3, I looked at his little body and couldn't fathom him losing me like I lost my mum. He was so little. I truly have only grieved my own childhood since having children of my own. After my second, my postnatal depression set in quite heavily due to other contributing factors too, and to be honest, I don't think I'm quite out of it just yet, but better at least. But what this meant was my connection and how I was connecting to my second was very different to my first. With depression, life matters, and having very demanding Mr. One. With depression, life matters, and having a very demanding Mr. One, I just don't know how to balance giving Mr. Two the attention and connection he deserves. I'm so worried that I'm failing. He has a bit of a parental preference for his dad, which I totally get is normal too, but it has felt a bit like my punishment for letting him down that first year of life and not being present as I should have been. To try and rebuild our connection, I've built out a schedule to incorporate a morning every week with just him, which I'm so excited about because I feel like I need to make up for the hours I spent drowning around him. Finally, leading to my question now, and thank you for bearing with me, and I'm not sure if this is a silly question to be honest, but how do I do justice to Mr. Two other than one-on-one time, which I'm able to do now but won't last forever? How do I connect with Mr. One? How do I connect with him while Mr. One doesn't allow us any space when we're all together? It's tricky. Or is it just what having multiple kids is like? I didn't have any siblings, so I feel quite new to sharing and being shared, and I'd love some tips on what to say to Mr. One while I'm spending time with Mr. Two. Or does the second find the connection, or does the second find the connection in the togetherness? Thank you for all that you're doing. I've cried every episode I've listened to. Not going to lie, sometimes I hear what I should be doing and I feel like I'm failing, but I love that both you share your realness too, which helps bring back the message that no one's perfect and we're all just doing our best. I could write an essay on how great you are, because you are, but I'll let you get on to your other letters. Thank you. An almost connected mum.
What do you think listening to that?
Tough. Yeah, I always just think immediately when I get drawn so quickly when someone says, I've got 2 boys, 1.5 and 4, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I just think that would be really tough. I mean, I don't have. I mean, I now have to think back to the start of that question. I mean, I have both my parents still now, and I'm 44 years old, so I don't know what it'd be like at age 3 and 6 to lose both of them.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go to a boarding school and do those things because my grandparents probably struggled or that was common or whatever. But I can't relate to that, you know?
Yeah.
Like I just have no, like that's so tough. And then this person doing all this work to get better, it's just amazing. And I can what I can understand is the reparenting along the way. So that would make for like you're trying to parent and you're seeing all this stuff for the first time. You don't have siblings, so you got no gauge on what, you know, like person's doing amazing work.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, what a privilege to be a small part of our journey.
Yeah, totally.
I think there's a couple of things that are really helpful, and I reckon you're going to have a really good answer for, like, you know, when one kid is crowding the other, like especially the older kid. But I think before we get to that, there's a really beautiful bit in it of what she's reflecting on and helping us all learn the difference between like love, so unconditional support and positive regard from, you know, the grandparents, and being madly in love with someone. And like, I think that's where a lot of the connection comes from. And I wonder if you do this, but I do this. I show both my kids every single day how much I adore them. Like I say it a lot, but I show them as well. Like and Annalise is really good at this too. We're just so excited to see them, like multiple times a day, to be with them, to be having fun with them. And that really high level of joy, it heals our wounds from our own childhood as well. So that's often like the pathway back, and thinking about, do we purposely do that? I think you do as well. You like really celebrate who the girls are in the moment, you know, connecting with them and humming. And that's like the highest level of connection, isn't it?
Yeah, I love, I do like picking the kids up.
Yeah.
It's those sorts of things. It's like you haven't seen them. And just I've always loved just picking them up from school or daycare. We put our kids in a lot of those things a lot, so it's really great to reconnect really quickly. And it's just nice. Like, there's nothing like, you know, a kid seeing you and then lighting up.
And then
like,
you
how
see
can
them
you?
first, and then they see you
Yeah.
across the room.
Oh, there's nothing quite like it, I reckon.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Really nice. So, so I like that part of it.
And tell me, the next bit, you know, you've got an older kid. I've got an older kid too that crowds out the younger one a fair bit.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I try and celebrate one or the other. Like try to get the other one to celebrate the other one. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like saying, Ron will come up with a drawing and I'll be like, oh my goodness, and I'll be like, Winnie, did you draw this? And then she'll be like,
older,
my older son will be like, did you draw that? Who did Mum do the letters? And I'll be like, no, I did them. And I'm like, did you see the letters she did? And then so I show the other one, like, we should be really happy for that one. And it's then done in a genuine way. And like one of them will then run off and come back with something. And then you're like, did you just go and get help with this? And they're like, no. And you're like, and you know, so can you believe she did that? And then like I just sort of invite them in to be like, can you believe? I don't do this all the time. It's just, when I do it well, that's what I do, Billy. Yeah. The other time is I'm like, God, like, mate, your sister needs help. Just give us a second. So I do that too. But yeah, that's the other end of the spectrum.
That's what I was going to say, and you said it better than I could, which is not that surprising. But I do. Evie and I celebrate Charlie together. We're down on the ground with him, like really enjoying him together. And then I've noticed over time, Evie then celebrates Charlie and repeats those patterns of behaviours even when I'm not there. Just down, telling him how amazing he is, you know, like really enjoying him.
And try and challenge him, like in a healthy way. Like you'll be like, Winnie will do something, I'll be like, yeah, that's cool. I'm not sure Ron could do that. And Ron will be like, yeah, I can. Be like, can you? It's pretty big girl stuff, you know, like not big girl stuff. Like, and then she'll do it and be like, oh my God.
And set them up to succed.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly, something they can do.
Totally.
That sort of one.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like it feels like that's what having brothers was like as well. You're like challenging each other in a healthy way.
I didn't get that a lot. There was a lot of conflict, and those wounds have not healed between me and my brothers because there's a lot of conflict. And I think I won't go back to the siblings app completely, but just making sure that you always protect that relationship and sacrifice your relationship with the kid if you need to over the siblings. You know, this is my fault. This hasn't gone well. I was the one that stuffed it up. You know. yeah, even like little simple things, you know, like Evie fell over in the bathroom because Charlie was throwing water at me while I was bathing both of them last night, and she was really upset at Charlie, and I was like, no, it's my fault. It's my fault that happened. I didn't pick up the water. You know,
We got that mate that's good at that, don't we?
Yes, Benny's. God,
Another episode.
Yeah,
Jeez.
may as well be the
Gets
third-
more
third-
mentions than me.
Third mic.
Better not even move to Melbourne.
He's a beautiful man, but I think he likes the sun too much. Anyway, that's the end of the longs.
Beautiful.
I just want to say something.
Yeah.
Just this time, maybe more than any, there were phenomenal longs that came through that we actually had a crack at including, but it would have been a 3.5, 4 hour episode.
Yeah.
And I just want to honour some of the amazing stuff that came through that we weren't able to read out.
Yep.
Where they were just so long, and it would have been not doing them justice to cut them down. So we just now read purely everything that we've always have actually just read exactly. We don't change anything because we want it to be genuine. But they were just such long, beautiful stories that we weren't able to. And I'm going to try and find a way to honour them. But it also helps build out what we do in the future, realising where the support might be helpful. So I just want to really thank everyone who sent in. Like 1% of what comes in gets read, less than that. But you are still informing me, and I don't want people to stop doing that because they don't hear their questions. But just sometimes it's just really hard because it will take kind of 10 minutes to read it.
They do inform what you do, don't they?
Massively. They also heal me, which is not the community's responsibility,
Job.
but
But
they
it's
connect.
good.
They connect with me. There's beautiful messages come through and connect with me, and I reckon almost every day I'll tear up at something that comes through from the PCP community.
I was reading these next ones in the cafe before. We
Yeah.
start at 7 in the morning, I want to 7:30, and I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, let's see if we can get through all of them without. But yeah, and these are some beautiful things that came in. There was a lot of similarities, a lot of amazing stuff that was really helpful. So we tried to pick just the best ones.
Couple of crackers. All right, here we go. Let's rip in, Billy. These are the advice that people give because we love advice for our part twos. Whoa, strong start by this person. Hey, doctors. So glad you're back to keep us all company, sane, connected and amused. Love the Connection Pod app. Seems simple, but so deeply effective. In my work, I do a lot of reflective practice with parents and family groups around meal times. There is a constant theme of parents checking lunch boxes as the first thing they do in greeting their child, followed by, did you finish your lunch today? Why didn't you eat it? Did you make a friend? A barrage of questions.
I was literally
with
doing
little
that
to
when
no
this came through.
Oh, this person just is watching me.
It's
This
amazing.
person's from my school. They're watching me. My colleagues and I do some work behind the scenes to create a resource for kindergartens and childcare settings for families. It's called Reconnect, Refuel, Relax and Routine. Catchy, right? It's very tight. It in a very tight nutshell, here's what we pulled together from the evidence we found. Reconnect. Be so happy to see your child. Say hello, embrace them, look at them with joy and wonder, and say something like, I'm so happy to see you. Take a minute to truly see them before rushing to get on with
Signing them out.
Signing them out.
Collecting their sibling.
Okay, collecting their other sibling. Yeah, okay. Oh, signing them out. Sorry, yes, of course. Sorry, I was thinking of school. Refueling. Bring a snack. Oh, this is such good advice. Bring a snack or something for them to eat after care. Try not to check their lunchbox in eyesight of the child or validate praising or eating, but offer some food to bridge the gap before dinner. Relax. Play calm music on the commute. Try not to fire away with 50 questions. Just relax and try to give space. Let your child relax and transition into the new environment or commuting on their way home. That's a great one. Routine. Create a simple pattern or practice after care to create consistency for your child, like helping with dinner, setting the table. When you get home, I'd love for you to show me how you put out the placemats. We found the process of connecting after care be really helpful for families across the community. Hopefully others find it helpful. Big thanks. So great.
Amazing. Yeah, we got lots of different versions of that, which was amazing. And also it's one that's not there, but it kind of fits in so beautifully with it all is like activity, just like doing something, jumping around with them, racing, how fast can you run and all that stuff, just because sometimes they'll have a lot of built up energy and it's good for them to get out. But yeah, I thought that one was amazing. Cool. Okay. Dear Dr. Nick and Dr. Billy. A lot of people sent in Dr. Nick and Billy, which I always love. I'm like, that's awesome. It's hard to know where to begin. After discovering your podcast a few months ago, I've delighted in binging the entire back catalogue and found myself moved to tears in almost every episode. Your words, banter and knowledge have changed me as a parent. They've encouraged me to prioritise my own mental well-being. They've made me a more compassionate person, and they've fueled my connection with my wonderful 18-month-old son. Billy, so often when I'm stuck in the grind, I hear your voice in my head. Remember to enjoy him. I cannot thank you enough. I found your most recent episode on connection really helpful, and props on the movie choice. What a classic. I'm a dentist. I work exclusively in paediatrics and have been lucky enough to observe so many families over the years and learn from their parenting strategies. I've also been so fortunate to learn from my colleagues, both dental and medical. At the end of the connection episode, you asked for gold, and so here is mine. A few years ago, I attended a paediatric communication workshop run by the anaesthetics at a children's hospital where I work. Much like your podcast, that workshop changed my perspective, my clinical approach, and ultimately changed my life. I went on to do a year-long diploma with that same group. There are 1,000 things I've learned through this process that I could share, but here are 2 pieces of gold that stand out the most. Instead of saying try, say practice. Try carries an inherent implication of failure. For example, if I say, on my way here today, I tried to jump the fence, do you think I made it successfully over that fence? But replace that try with practice, and that sentence takes on a whole new meaning. I found swapping these in my clinical work is incredibly helpful because practice is so positive. It drives connection, it feeds self-esteem, it takes the pressure off because it's not about the result, it's about the practice and skill development. I've also found that it takes the pressure off parents. I'll say, okay, we're going to practice some x-rays today. And even if we didn't get the actual x-ray that day, everyone still leaves feeling like they've achieved something because we were just practicing. I do this through my whole life now, and it works wonders with my son, myself, and my husband. We don't try to do things, we practice. Game changer. Amazing. My second piece of gold. One incredible paediatric anaesthetist taught me this one. Be the calm one in the room. Calm is contagious. Billy, your comment to Annalise about seeing if you get her to catch the calm took me straight to this. When things are really escalating at work or at home, often I'll go for this approach and just see how calm I can be. Being in a paediatric dental environment, as I'm sure you can imagine, often comes with a lot of child and parental anxiety, and I found this technique incredibly helpful. Anyway, if you've come this far, thank you for reading this. Thank you for your wonderful podcast. I have a QR code link in my drawer at work and frequently hand it out to families. We now have a group at work that all listen and discuss the new episodes as they come out. I'm yet to get my husband on board as he's not a podcast guy, but to be honest, he's heard and taken on so much from the content I've parroted by now that I'd say I could count him as a fan. Dr. Nick and Dr. Billy, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the knowledge, the laughs and the sense of belonging that comes from listening to a podcast like PCP. I hope you know and feel how special you are. My eternal gratitude and admiration.
Awesome. I wrote some. I've now started. I've resorted to texting you when I get good advice to be like, "How good was that today?" I've just put that one down. Particularly like that try and practice one.
It's beautiful.
What a ripper. Hey, number 3, Dr. Nick and Dr. Billy. I'm playing catch up listening to the episodes when I have time, and finally managed to listen to one in its actual release. I love when people do that. They're like, God, I finally caught up and watch it so I can ask a question. Anyway, I normally have 100 questions that I missed the timing for. And while I have a load of questions on this topic as well, I actually have a strategy that I feel could be more beneficial to share. I have a feeling this is going to be a long email, so I won't waste too much time talking about how incredible the podcast is, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You have been the light in the darkness on so many occasions. For context, I have 2 glorious children, a sunshine in human form 10-month-old baby and a wild and extraordinary 4-year-old. My daughter has highly masked autistic ADHD PDA profile.
Pathological demand avoidance.
Okay. And we tend to struggle with additional challenges in day-to-day life. She's resistant to change, sensory sensitive, and so intelligent it can aspirate issues as her understanding can far exceed her peers and often her own communication. We're used to the rhythm of neurodiversity, swinging between periods of regulation and dysregulation with changes in tolerance level and mental well-being. And we are a neurodiversity affirming home, being late diagnosed autistic ADHD myself. We largely parent with open communication and autonomy where possible to accommodate the extreme demand avoidance and generally do pretty well. At the moment, we are in crisis. Our beautiful, funny, vivacious and caring daughter is struggling far beyond any dysregulation we have previously endured. I'm confident that 4 is challenging age to parent for most, but throw neurodiversity into the mix and it becomes a minefield. We're having daily meltdowns that can last hours, sensory issues that mean leaving the house distressed for the British winter is becoming nearly impossible as she is most comfortable barefoot and undressed. My poor girl is so quick to anger, showing violent destructive behaviour, self-injuries, refusing to go to nursery, refusing to come home, refusing to eat, screaming constantly. At 4, she still wakes up at least 5 times a night, but she's been waking up hysterical and inconsolable for hours every night. The list goes on. This had been escalating for about 3 weeks until disrupted weekend plans fueled the fire that has been burning in my daughter's soul, and we have totally lost all control. I have an extremely strong connection with my daughter, and I'm usually able to console her, even in the toughest moments. I can also usually work out her triggers and accommodate or resolve disruption, but autism can be extremely dynamic, and I am both completely baffled by what has caused such emotional chaos and powerless to support her, as she is even rejecting me, and I have felt our connection slipping away. It's been exhausting and heartbreaking to see her in such distress. Our 10-month-old spends a lot of the time seeing this behaviour, seeing his favourite person distraught, and as she requires so much attention, he is also not getting the focus he deserves. As a family, we are on our knees. It has been unrelenting, but after what has felt like a lifetime, there is finally light at the end of our tunnel. While I appreciate our situation is extreme, I imagine many families go through periods where their children have significant emotions and can't figure out why. I need to mention as well that this strategy came from my amazing husband who consciously parents with patience, purpose and kindness in a complicated family dynamic. One tactic useful to parenting neurodiversity is low demand parenting, where you remove demands as much as possible, like going out of the house, brushing teeth, etc. So we decided to do this to the extreme. We basically said, "You're in charge," to our angry and dysregulated 4-year-old daughter. There is no bedtime. You can eat what you want, play what you want, wear what you want, or indeed don't. Do what you want. Sorry. If it is safe, we will accommodate. Our usual boundaries were causing a fight or flight and impacting our ability to connect, so they are temporarily on hold. We're breaking all our own rules to try and give our beautiful little girl a chance to de-escalate. On Thursday night after nursery, we had ice cream for dinner and stayed up until 10 p.m. We played the floor is lava for over an hour and laughed for the first time in weeks. We even got some spontaneous I love yous and cuddles for the first time in forever, which is a stark contrast to having I don't want parents screamed in our faces. Giving her the freedom and autonomy has caused an immediate de-escalation in the rage and given us all the space to reconnect. We have a long way to go, and this strategy is short-term temporary, but we have seen glimpses of our happy, animated girl back. We're extremely fortunate to be in a position where we can accommodate in this way, but facilitating autonomy doesn't have to be so absolute. Feeling like you're in a constant battle with your child is terrible for everyone, and letting them go has put us back on the same team and allowed us to comfort and support again. But just dropping the little things can allow a sense of control to return for a struggling child. Apologise for lengthy email. Maybe this isn't the way to resolve a lack of connection, but maybe it may help someone else. It brought us back from crisis and to a place where we all have capacity to reconnect in the situation that a few days ago felt completely hopeless. Once again, thank you for everything you do. I consume parenting information in a way only a neurodiverse brain can, and all of the books, blogs, courses, academic papers, even professional support we have, pop culture parenting is hands down the best resource I have found that has not only helped us understand our children better, but ourselves as well. I'm desperately waiting for Dr. Billy's book to be released in the UK. Thank you. That's a ripper.
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Oh.
Listening to that story.
Well,
let's think about the first bit. How much the little girl's struggling.
Fuck, that sounds so tough. It's such a tricky balance as well with a 10-month-old. I just feel that'd be so distressing to watch a little girl go through that. Like, I got little girls. I got a 4-year-old, so to watch and hear that happening, can't picture it.
And how do you feel when you hear about, we stopped, stay up as long as you want, what should we have for dinner?
Drop the demand. Awesome.
Yeah,
why not?
Beautiful, isn't
like,
it? So some people might be like, no, that's not parenting.
Stuff that.
Yeah, I agree. It's because why? What's this whole episode been about?
Connection.
This whole topic.
So you just got to connect.
What when we're thinking about staying up till 10 or ice cream for dinner, it's our logical brain, isn't it?
Yep.
But there's no point.
What's the point?
If the kid is unhappy and everyone's distressed.
And they're going to wake up screaming 5 times a night. You might as well enjoy them. Like, enjoy the kid, right?
It's what we do it for.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's why we have kids.
Yeah.
It's, is to enjoy them.
Find the way to do it.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. The kid feels safe now.
Yeah.
All of those demands might be fine for a lot of kids. It was too much for that kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's beautiful. They've connected, hearing, I love you, and those laughs for the first time. Like, it's amazing. And we see a lot of kids like that. And this kid might be as well. So I don't want to, but a lot of kids with that profile get medicated.
Right.
They get put on heavy medications, and I spend more time trying to pull kids off those meds. And that's this beautiful therapeutic approach that these parents have done, which is, what does this kid need in front of me? They need everything to drop, and they need it to just be joy, and they need to have a sense of control and know that, they've got a voice, and that we're hearing that everything is too much. So it's beautiful.
How good is it?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I love that one. And one of my great prides in the PCP is that we have the strength of a lot of neurodiverse families giving us input and guiding us.
There's been a couple today, I'm sure a lot of them, but like, just the knowledge some of these people were able to put back into their email. I'm like, I've done 102 episodes and I can't talk to the ebbs and flows of co-regulation and then through to connection and then know that's emotional and getting it back. I'm like, geez, some bloody good listeners and people, taking on so much. Like, I can't do what these people do.
Oh yeah, they make me a better parent.
It's amazing.
It's, in clinic and here. Okay, last bit. Heineken Billy. I've been waiting with bated breath for the next episode, and it did not disappoint. This podcast is truly some of the best content I've listened to, and it's helped me enormously personally. As a mum of my beautiful daughter, most beautiful and delightful 3-year-old boy, and as an auntie, a sister and a daughter. My family is slowly starting to understand I will not rest until they've listened to. I work in child protection. I manage a team who cares for our community's most vulnerable children, young people and their families, specifically when there is no longer a plan for children to return home to their parents. I make decisions about when this happens. Every day I make a decision to keep families apart. Essentially, I break hearts for a living. You'll be pleased to know, though, even in this space, we actually never say never. My team and I, with sometimes an unbalanced level of optimism, creativity and hope, will give ourselves entirely to ensure connection occurs for these children, their patients, their siblings, families, and the things that are most important to them. If I can, I'll always make a decision for the children to be home with a parent. What I didn't expect, and what I'm hoping will change the trajectory for even just one of my families, is how this podcast has helped me to connect, validate and regulate with the children, young people and their carers, but in particular parents. This connection has helped them to feel understood, be willing to come back and see me, to answer the phone when I refer them to support, to visit their children, even though it's hard and they have to be somewhat sober, and so many other things have to align for them to even get to the visit appointment meeting, to find the courage to take a step forward. These parents who are just adults whose needs were never met as children, who are still children in so many ways, waiting for someone to connect, meet their needs, make them feel safe, and while waiting, stumble over into adulthood. Parents who are doing what generations before them have done, who have lost hope. I've held space for a mum who stopped going to visits with her baby because it broke her heart. With scaffolding placed around her, build up supports, validation, and permission to feel sad and enjoy her daughter. Because two things can be true at once. She started to visit again, consistently. I've been able to give helpful, easily implemented and understood strategies to a 7-year-old grandparent trying very hard to care for their complex, traumatized 10-year-old grandson and their 4-year-old granddaughter with Down syndrome. Made alternative plans for her care until she's 18, knowing they will not survive to do it, and also that she may not survive either. I've been doing this for 15 years and it feels at times though I'm standing at the ocean with a bucket. Today I met a mum. She hasn't really engaged with child protection at all, hasn't visited her 18-month-old in months. I went to her home, knocked on the door. She's 22, using IV drugs, in active family violence. So are her parents, who she's living with. She's pregnant. I didn't know her, but she remembered me. She told me the story about how I took her from her parents when she was 10. She told me I saved her life. All I can think is how. How is that saving a life? Her 18-month-old is with her 65-year-old great-grandmother and likely will be for many years to come. The next baby will not go to the same home. She says she's too old and can't do tiny babies anymore. Fair enough. The siblings will be separated and a bond that they deserve that could in fact save their lives and being their lifelong connection will be severed before it's even begun. Obviously this is my passion. I'm working at the very pointy end of a very imperfect system. This is the 0.0002% of the population, which perhaps I need to remind myself of perspective more often. Perhaps there are kids and families from years gone by who are better for having had me in their life. Maybe my passion and perseverance were actually proactive and I did help a family to create safety. I wonder though, where is the best point of connection in this cycle? Where do my efforts need to focus? Who breaks the cycle? The babies or their carers? The 7-year-old grandma, the 22-year-old mum, the young person I just collected from the police station and drove home to residential care via KFC. It's the earlier the better, isn't it? Or is it all of the above? It's all of the above. Please continue for as long as you can. With my whole heart, I cannot stress how crucial this is to the world. My world very much included, and as a consequence, so many other little worlds. Cheers, boys. I've read that like 15 times, and I still couldn't read it without it clearly, so I hope that was clear enough. But jeez. Yeah, child protection work is far out. They're not supported enough. I'd love to do way more than I get to at the moment with them because they're amazing. They hold trauma. They hold more trauma than probably any other professional in the community. And I used to do home visits with them, and it's harrowing. I know she says the 0.0002%, but the latest stats we have are that 1 in 32 kids in this country has active child protection.
1 in 32.
1 in 32. There's a kid in every classroom.
Yeah.
That's all of our responsibility, not those parents and not just those child protection workers. And to hear that the podcast is helping people like that just blows my mind. That was heavy end. Hopefully that was a really helpful topic. Thank you, as I said, to everyone that sent in. We're going to do the next movie. We've got to do some more recent movies. The Hawthorne Boys had no idea of the movies that I was talking about.
In the
talk I mentioned a couple. They didn't know what Neverending Story. No one knew Aliens. I was like, how do you not know Aliens? And then one of the managers came in and saw a picture and was like, that's Aliens. I was like, thank God. So we're going to try and come up a little bit in the years.
Yep.
Which we have done with the next movie clue. I told you what the movie is?
No.
Actually,
You haven't told me.
Actually,
Give me a clue. Give us the clue.
I can't actually. I can't.
I won't
Let
say
me
it.
think about it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
all
let
right.
me think about it.
No dramas.
Like, I can't. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. Great episode. Thank you very much. That was a really tough one. I always seem to finish on a really tough one. Don't like to finish. We finished where we finished, but it's like, okay, well done. Well
Thank
done.
you,
Good
yeah.
read.
And,
I turned the phone off. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm out. I can concentrate. And then I
Yeah.
thought I might have to pick it up off you.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
why I was
thank
following.
You. No, I try to get it out. And yeah, thank you to everyone. Continue, please share the podcast. Like, we're trying to just get help around more people. We love hearing about being overseas. You're all amazing. We're going to keep doing more and more on on Patreon. So please come over there.
Yep.
And see if anyone gets the movie for the clue, and we will see you for the next topic.
Awesome.
Just doing
Thanks,
very
Billy.
Hey, don't let your mother smell that beer on your breath. She'll take it out on me.
I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I don't want to see anybody else either.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Just use your best judgment. We trust you.